I thought I was dead the moment the sky split open and dropped a burning blue window in front of my face. 1 second, I was standing in the middle of the street with a half-empty paper cup in my hand, watching people argue over traffic like that was the worst problem in the world. Next second, every car stalled, every screen went black, and the clouds above the city twisted into a giant glowing circle. Then the voice came down, calm and cheerful, like it was announcing a phone update instead of the end of civilization. The apocalypse game has begun. Everyone receives a status window. For 10 full seconds, nobody moved. Then people screamed. Blue windows opened in front of every person on the street. Some showed swords, some showed shields, some showed magic symbols. Some people laughed like they had just won the lottery. Others collapsed because their stats were trash. A huge guy near the bus stop yelled that he had gotten the warrior class and punched a street sign so hard it bent. A kid in a hoodie started throwing sparks from his fingers. A woman swung a glowing kitchen knife and nearly cut a parking meter in half. And me. My window flickered like an old television. Name's Logan. Class none. Level 1. Strength embarrassing. Agility also embarrassing. Magic, why are you asking? I stared at it and felt my soul leave my body. Then the window cracked. Not physically, it glitched. The blue frame tore open with a static hiss, and behind my pathetic level 1 status screen, another panel slid forward. This one was black, trimmed in gold, with tiny rotating gears in each corner. Admin menu, beginner zone permissions. I blinked. The panel blinked back. At first I thought every person had won. Maybe this was normal. Maybe the apocalypse game was generous and gave everyone some weird beginner button to press. But the people around me were too busy comparing stats, screaming about monsters, or trying to figure out why their phones had turned into useless black mirrors. Nobody was looking at anything like mine. I lifted one finger and touched the menu. A list unfolded. Spawn settings. Safe zone settings. Tutorial quest settings. Beginner shop settings. Starter monster settings. Village durability settings. Basic class upgrade settings. Respawn settings. Newbie punishment settings. I stared so hard my eyes started to water. Then a slime bounced out of an alley and swallowed a pigeon. That snapped everyone back into reality. The first monster of the apocalypse was not a dragon, not a demon king, not some nightmare with 10 heads. It was a green blob the size of a laundry basket, wobbling forward with dead little eyes and a wet plopping sound. The warrior guy charged it like he was about to become a legend. The slime slapped him across the street. He flew into a mailbox and made a noise like a dropped chair. Everyone ran. I ran too because my strength stat looked like a personal insult, but while sprinting, my finger accidentally tapped something on the black panel. Spawn settings opened. Current slime spawn rate, 1 every 5 minutes. I should have closed it. I should have focused on survival. Instead, my brain, which had never helped me in a crisis before, whispered the dumbest idea imaginable. If I can change this, I can test whether the menu is real. So while the street exploded into chaos, while a slime bounced after me like a possessed exercise ball, I changed the spawn rate from 1 every 5 minutes to 1 every 4 minutes and 59 seconds. A tiny button flashed. Apply. I pressed it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then far down the street, inside the alley, another slime dropped from a glowing circle exactly 1 second earlier than it should have. My heart stopped. The menu was real. I did not become brave. I did not raise my fist and declare I would conquer the game. I ducked behind a delivery truck, covered my mouth, and whispered, "Oh, I am going to abuse this so badly." That was the moment I made my first rule. No one could know. Not the warrior guy, not the people crying in the street, not the groups already forming around anyone with a flashy class. Definitely not the dangerous ones, the people who looked at the apocalypse and saw a chance to become kings of a broken world. I closed the black panel with a thought. My normal garbage status window remained. Level 1, no class, no skills, no dignity. Perfect. A powerless nobody was easy to ignore. The first safe zone appeared 10 minutes later. Dropped over an old park at the edge of downtown. A translucent dome shimmered over the trees, benches, cracked sidewalks, and a little fountain full of coins nobody would ever bother stealing now. The moment people crossed into the dome, monsters stopped chasing them, bleeding wounds slowed, fear turned into exhausted silence. A new window appeared for everyone. Welcome to the beginner village. Survive, learn, grow. 3 hours of safe zone protection remaining. People collapsed on the grass. A few started praying. Others opened their windows and shouted about their class options. Basic warrior, basic mage, basic ranger, basic priest, basic assassin, basic crafter. Mine still said none. A group of players started laughing when they noticed. Look at this guy, Marcus said. I learned his name because he announced it himself every 5 minutes. Marcus had the basic berserker class, a red aura, and the kind of grin that made every normal person take 2 steps back. He had already gathered a handful of terrified players behind him by promising protection. He dragged a rusty axe over one shoulder and looked at my empty class slot like I had personally offended him. No class, he said. How do you even fail a tutorial before it starts? The people around him laughed because people laugh when danger gives them permission. I scratched my cheek and gave him the most harmless smile I owned. Bad luck, I guess. Marcus shoved my shoulder. I stumbled because I wanted him to think that shove mattered. Stay out of the way, Logan. The useful people are making plans. I nodded like a coward. Inside my vision, the black menu opened again. Safe zone settings. Current protection time, 3 hours. Maximum adjustable protection time, 4 hours. Minimum 1 hour. I increased it by 10 minutes. The dome pulsed. Every player's timer updated. 3 hours and 10 minutes remaining. People gasped. Someone shouted, the safe zone extended. Marcus looked around like he had done it by breathing. I stayed quiet. That was my second discovery. My permissions were weak on paper, but they affected the foundation everyone stood on. The safe zone was beginner content, so it belonged to me. The tutorial was beginner content, so it belonged to me. The cheap shops, the weak monsters, the broken fences, the class upgrades, the respawn points, the dirt roads, the wooden barricades, the rusty training swords, the quest board nobody respected yet. All of it belonged to the beginner zone. And the entire apocalypse started in a beginner zone. That meant every hero, every future monster slayer, every arrogant S-rank who would someday look down on everyone had to begin on my floor. I did not have a sword. I did not have a class. I had the starting line. And if you control the starting line, you can trip every runner before they even know the race began. The first night was chaos. The safe zone dome held, but the monsters gathered outside it like the world's ugliest audience. Slimes bounced against the barrier and flattened into pancakes before sliding down. Tiny goblins with wooden clubs poked the dome and shrieked when sparks zapped their noses. Giant rats circled the park fence, sniffing for cracks. The village was pathetic. That was the only word for it. The fountain became the respawn point. The park bathrooms became the infirmary. The old snack kiosk turned into the beginner shop. The playground became the training yard. A few wooden fences rose from the ground around the park because the game apparently thought waist-high planks could stop an apocalypse. People complained immediately. The shop prices were too high. The starter swords were dull. The beginner potions tasted like wet pennies. The tutorial quests gave almost no rewards. The fences were already cracking. The safe zone was too short. The respawn penalty was terrifying. Nobody wanted to fight, but everyone wanted to be saved. I listened to all of it. Then I went to work. Not openly, never openly. I sat under a tree, pretending to stare at my status window with the defeated expression of a man trying to find his missing class. In reality, I was sliding through menus like a villain with a coupon code. Beginner shop discount, 0%. I changed it to 1%. The snack kiosk shimmered, the wooden sign above it updated, prices dropped by 1 copper. People cheered like salvation had arrived. Village fence durability, 80%. I tapped repair. Every broken plank snapped straight, nails pulling themselves back into place with little metallic pops. A tired player near the fence jumped backward and screamed. Tutorial quest name, kill 5 slimes. I renamed it to slap 5 slimes and survive. The quest board changed. A few people laughed for the first time since the sky broke. Safe zone passive recovery, 1% per hour. I raised it to 2%. A bleeding man stopped shaking. A child's bruised arm faded from purple to yellow. People whispered that the beginner village was blessed. I lowered the price of stale bread by another 1%, not because it mattered, but because watching the kiosk sign blink made me feel like I had robbed the apocalypse with pocket change. Then I found the starter monster settings. Slime experience reward, 1. Slime drop rate, 5%. Slime aggression, low. Slime bounce velocity, normal. I stared at bounce velocity, longer than any sane person should. Outside the dome, a slime pressed its stupid face against the barrier. I changed bounce velocity from normal to silly. The slime launched itself 30 feet into the air, bounced off a tree, and landed on a goblin. The goblin went down like it had been hit by a meteor made of pudding. I had to bite my fist to stop laughing. People thought the monsters were glitching. Marcus declared that strong players had frightened them. A few idiots believed him. That was fine, let them. I donned the beginner village looked slightly less pathetic. The fences were straight, the shop was cheaper, the healing aura was stronger, the quest board had stupid names that made people less terrified. The slimes had become unpredictable green cannonballs, and every time they bounced outside the dome, they accidentally crushed other low-level monsters. I had not gained a single level. I had not swung a weapon, but I had changed the entire survival rate of the village. And nobody knew. The next morning, the first tutorial wave began. A bell rang over the park, and a glowing message appeared. Beginner quest, slap 5 slimes and survive. Reward 3 copper, 1 stale bread, 1 splintered dagger. I looked at that reward and almost felt insulted on behalf of humanity. 3 copper for fighting living acid balloons during the apocalypse. That was not a quest. That was workplace abuse with monsters. I opened tutorial quest settings. Reward value multiplier, 1. Maximum allowed, 3. My fingers twitched. 3 times the reward for every beginner quest. Not enough to break the game, not enough to make people suspicious of one specific nobody, but enough to change the foundation. I pressed it. The quest board flashed. Reward 9 copper, 3 stale bread, 1 splintered dagger, 1 beginner token. People shouted. Suddenly, the same cowards who had refused to leave the dome were gripping sticks and broken umbrellas like holy weapons. Marcus took credit instantly. See, he yelled, climbing onto the fountain. The game rewards courage. Follow me and I'll clear the slimes. I let him gather his crowd. It was useful. Marcus was loud, reckless, and convinced the world existed to applaud him. That made him the perfect distraction. He charged out with 12 players. The slimes bounced around in silly mode. Marcus swung his axe and split one in half. Acid splashed on his boot and he howled. Another slime bounced over his head and landed on a player behind him. 3 players ran back screaming. 2 actually fought. 1 discovered that slimes popped if you hit them from below during a bounce. I watched carefully. Menu had limits. I could change settings, but I could not simply delete danger. I could not spawn treasure chests full of legendary swords. I could not turn slimes into dragons. Beginner permissions meant beginner permissions, but the beauty of beginner things was that everyone underestimated them. A slime worth 1 experience was nothing. 1,000 slimes worth 3 experience each was a staircase. A weak fence was nothing. A weak fence repaired every minute was a wall. A safe zone was temporary. A safe zone with extended time, higher healing, cheaper supplies, and controlled spawns was a kingdom pretending to be a park. So while Marcus screamed outside the dome, I built my first machine. Spawn settings allowed me to define monster clusters, not create new types, but adjust where beginner monsters appeared inside the beginner zone. I could increase spawn rate near marked tutorial areas. I could reduce spawns near civilians. I could create low-danger routes for new players. I could increase drop rates by tiny amounts after quest completion streaks. Tiny things. Tiny things stacked until they became ridiculous. I marked the cracked basketball court outside the park as Slime Training Area 1. I raised slime spawn rate there. I lowered their aggression inside that boundary. I increased bounce velocity to silly. I raised drop rate for beginner tokens by 2%. I set their preferred movement pattern to orbit. Within minutes, the basketball court became a spinning slime carousel. Slimes bounced in circles, smacking into each other, popping at predictable angles, and dropping coins like somebody had shaken a vending machine full of jelly. The first player to notice was Harper. She was not a warrior, she was not a healer, she was not a glowing chosen one with tragic eyes. She worked the beginner shop because the game had assigned her the basic merchant class. And she had the terrifying calm of someone who had spent years arguing with customers before the apocalypse and saw monsters as only a slight escalation. Harper watched the slime carousel for 30 seconds, then looked at me. I looked innocent. She looked at the slime carousel again. 1 slime bounced perfectly into another, popped, and dropped a copper coin at the feet of a shaking player. Harper narrowed her eyes. That is not natural. I shrugged. Maybe slimes are social. Slimes do not form a profitable whirlpool by accident. Maybe these ones went to business school. She stared at me long enough that I considered lowering my intelligence stat just to seem less suspicious. Then she walked away and opened the beginner shop. A minute later, the shop sign updated again because I dropped prices by another 1%. Harper froze, slowly turned, and stared at me from across the park. I waved with 2 fingers. She did not expose me. That was how I got my first ally, though neither of us said it out loud. By the end of the second day, the village had changed. Players were no longer huddled under trees waiting to die. They formed lines for the slime carousel. They learned timing. They earned copper. They bought cheap bread and dull weapons. The wounded recovered under the stronger safe zone aura. The fences repaired themselves every hour because I found a maintenance interval setting and set it as low as allowed. Marcus hated it. Not because people were surviving. Because they were surviving without needing him. The louder the village became, the more his face twisted. He had expected fear to make him important. Instead, my silly slime casino was turning terrified office workers into level 3 slime assassins with pockets full of copper. That night, Marcus cornered a group near the shop and demanded a cut of their drops. I watched from the fountain. One player refused. Marcus grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the edge of the safe zone. The crowd went quiet. I opened newbie punishment settings. Current player aggression penalty inside safe zone, warning only. Options: warning, stun, repel, temporary lockout, beginner jail. Beginner jail. I almost kissed the menu. It was locked. Requirement: establish holding area. I looked around. The park had bathrooms, a snack kiosk, storage sheds, playground tubes, and one old maintenance building behind the tennis courts with bars on the windows. Village structure designation. I selected the maintenance building. Assign function: storage, workshop, infirmary, holding area. I chose holding area. The building shook, rust peeled off the window bars. The lock clicked. A glowing sign appeared over the door. Beginner jail. Everyone saw it. Marcus saw it too, but he was too busy trying to look scary. I changed aggression penalty to beginner jail. He raised his fist. The moment he swung, the safe zone flashed. A wooden mallet made of blue light dropped from the sky and bonked him on the head so hard his knees folded. The crowd gasped. Marcus vanished in a bubble and reappeared inside the maintenance building, face smashed against the barred window. A message appeared above the jail. Aggressive player detained for 10 minutes. I had to turn around so nobody saw my grin. Marcus shouted threats. His followers backed away from him like his bad luck was contagious. The player he tried to rob ran behind Harper's counter. Harper leaned on the shop window, looked at Marcus in jail, then looked at me. "Business school slimes," she said. I gave her another harmless shrug. That was the first time the village realized the safe zone could fight back. That was also the first time I realized beginner permissions included punishment. And punishment was hilarious. Marcus came out 10 minutes later furious, humiliated, and surrounded by people pretending not to laugh. He looked for someone to blame. His eyes landed on me because weak people make convenient targets. "You," he snapped. I pointed at myself with the innocent confusion of a baby deer holding a knife behind its back. "You think this is funny?" "Honestly," I said, "a little." He stepped toward me, remembered the jail, and stopped. That hesitation was more valuable than any sword. Fear had changed direction. The third day brought goblins. Not the tiny ones poking the dome with sticks. A full beginner horde spawned in the streets beyond the park, hundreds of them pouring out of alleys with crude shields, rusty knives, and shrill war cries. The quest board trembled. Beginner defense event, Goblin Raid. Objective: survive until dawn. Reward based on contribution. Marcus saw the raid as his comeback. He gathered every person with a combat class and stood at the gate like a self-appointed hero. His axe glowed red. He looked stronger than before because, to be fair, he had been killing monsters nonstop. His level had risen faster than most. Mine was still 1. That made him smile. "Stay behind the fence, Logan," he said. "Try not to trip over your own status window." I raised my hands, wouldn't dream of getting in the way. Then I opened the menu and prepared to do exactly that. The Goblin Raid was beginner content. The Village Defense event was beginner content. The fence, the gate, the monster pathing, the raid reward, the trap slots, all of it sat inside my permissions like tools waiting for a criminally irresponsible carpenter. Trap slots, 0 out of 0. Locked. Requirement: workshop. I looked at the old tennis court storage room. Village structure designation. Assign function: workshop. Storage room unfolded like a puzzle box. Wooden beams slid out. A tiny chimney popped from the roof. A workbench appeared inside with a hammer, nails, rope, and a sign that said beginner trap crafting. Trap slots 0 out of 10. I placed my first trap at the main gate. Beginner pitfall. Damage low. Activation hostile monster. Reset time 30 minutes. Boring. I opened slime settings. Slime cluster pathing, orbit. New path gate funnel. I sent the slime carousel rolling toward the main road. Then I adjusted goblin path preference. Beginner goblins liked open paths, shiny objects, and weak barriers. I could not control them directly, but I could make the main gate look very shiny and very weak. I lowered visible fence durability at the gate to 20% while keeping actual durability at 100. The goblins saw a broken-looking entrance and rushed it like bargain hunters on a holiday sale. Marcus raised his axe and roared. The goblins charged. The pitfall opened. The first wave fell in. Then the slimes arrived. Hundreds of green blobs bounced down the road in perfect stupid rhythm, each one set to silly velocity. They hit the backs of the goblin horde and launched them forward. Goblins flew over the pitfall, slammed into the fake broken gate, bounced backward, landed on slimes, and popped into coins, tokens, and beginner knives. The entire raid turned into a blender powered by stupidity. Players stood behind the fence, weapons raised, completely unnecessary. Marcus lowered his axe. Goblin flew past his face upside down and screamed until it hit a slime and exploded into copper. The contribution board went insane. Every player who had defended the gate received points because the trap belonged to the village. Every low-level player in the safe zone got survival contribution. The reward multiplier tripled the payout. The shop filled with goblin knives. Harper started selling them before the raid ended. I stood in the back, hands in my pockets, pretending to be amazed. Inside, I was conducting a symphony of nonsense. Second trap, sticky puddle. Third trap, squeaky plank. Fourth trap, beginner scarecrow. The scarecrow did nothing but insult goblins in a squeaky voice. Apparently, goblins had fragile pride. They surrounded it, screaming, while slimes bounced off their heads. I dawned the road outside the park looked like a battlefield designed by a toddler with unlimited marbles. The goblin horde was gone. The village fences stood untouched. Players had leveled. The shop had inventory. The quest board gave out enough rewards to make people cry. Marcus got contribution rank 17. I got nothing because I had not officially participated. That was fine. My reward was better. The village upgraded. Beginner village rank increased from F to E. New permissions unlocked. I opened the admin menu behind my fake status window and felt my grin turn dangerous. Zone layout editing. Starter reward tuning. Basic class upgrade cost adjustment. Beginner jail duration scaling. Monster wave scheduling. Village structure synergy. Now the apocalypse had made a mistake. Before it had given me buttons. Now it had given me a toolbox. Morning after the goblin raid, people treated the village like a miracle and Marcus like a weather report nobody trusted. He still had strength. He still had followers. But every time he tried to stand tall, someone looked at the beginner jail and smirked. He could not openly attack inside the safe zone. Outside the safe zone, the slime carousel made ambushes complicated. The more he tried to intimidate people, the more the village itself embarrassed him. So he changed tactics. He started hunting outside the dome and controlling loot routes. It was clever in the way a raccoon breaking into a trash can is clever. He could not rob people inside, so he waited outside. He and his followers stood near the basketball court slime farm, demanding a cut from anyone who wanted to use it. Beginner players were stronger now, but many were still scared. Marcus knew fear. He used it like a weapon. That made him dangerous. It also made him predictable. Harper told me while pretending to restock bread. Your business school slimes are being taxed. Taxed, I asked. By the loud idiot with the axe. People keep paying him. They would rather lose copper than lose teeth. I leaned against the kiosk counter and looked out at the training court. Marcus stood there with his arms crossed, laughing as players handed him coins. I could have used jail. But the punishment setting only applied inside the safe zone. Outside the dome, aggression counted as ordinary player conflict unless it happened in a designated beginner activity area. Designated beginner activity area. I opened zone layout editing. The basketball court was marked as Slime Training Area 1, activity type, monster training. player conflict rule, allowed. I changed it to cooperative tutorial field. Player conflict rule options appeared. Allowed. Reduced damage. Warning. Repel. Beginner jail. I picked warning first. A glowing sign rose beside the court. Cooperative tutorial field, player aggression prohibited. Marcus glanced at it and laughed. Then he grabbed a player by the collar. The sign flashed yellow. Warning. Marcus spat at the ground and raised his axe anyway. I switched the rule to repel. He swung. The court punched him. Not a person, not a trap. The actual painted surface lit up, and a springy force launched Marcus straight into the air. He rose above the fence, above the trees, above the dome, spinning with his axe still in hand. Everyone looked up. For one glorious second, he became the village's first fireworks display. Then he fell into the fountain respawn pool, with a splash so huge it drenched half the safe zone. A message appeared. Aggressive player repelled from cooperative tutorial field. No one laughed at first. They were too stunned. Then Harper snorted. That was enough, the entire village broke. Marcus crawled out of the fountain dripping wet, red aura flickering, face so purple I thought he might unlock a new class called Angry Vegetable. He pointed at the sky, at the court, at the village, at everyone. This place is broken. I nodded from beside the shop. Seems dangerous to attack people then. His eyes found me again. He knew something was wrong. He did not know what. That made him more furious, because people like Marcus hate mysteries unless they are the ones hiding the knife. That afternoon, I upgraded the class system. Basic class upgrades were expensive, too expensive. Players needed tokens from beginner quests, monster drops, and combat achievements. Most people had barely enough to buy food and repair weapons. Strong players like Marcus could afford upgrades because they killed faster and stole more. Weak players fell behind. The gap widened every hour. That was how worlds became cruel. I opened basic class upgrade settings. Upgrade cost multiplier, 1. Minimum allowed, 0.7. I lowered it to 0.7. Then I found beginner hardship bonus. Inactive. Description, players below zone average level receive increased beginner token drops. I activated it. Then I found first clear assistance. Inactive. Description, first completion of each tutorial quest grants a one-time stat boost. I activated it. The quest board flashed. The class shrine, which had appeared near the playground as a boring stone circle, lit up with 6 colors. People rushed over. Weak players who had been stuck at level 2 suddenly had enough tokens to upgrade. Basic warriors became trained warriors. Basic mages gained stable casting. Basic crafters unlocked repair. Basic priests unlocked stronger recovery. Basic assassins unlocked silent step. Basic rangers unlocked guided shot. The village's average strength jumped in 1 hour. Marcus watched his advantage shrink in real time. I watched his face and learned an important lesson. When you raise the floor, the people standing on others suddenly feel shorter. The next threat came from outside the village. At sunset, the game opened the first route to a real dungeon. A subway entrance 2 blocks away became a gate. Black mist leaked from the stairs. Status windows called it a rank E beginner dungeon, which sounded harmless until the first team went in and came out missing 3 people. The survivors said skeletons moved in the tunnels. The boss was a giant rat with bone armor. The reward was enough experience to jump several levels. Marcus saw his chance to regain control. He gathered a stronger team, including several players who had just upgraded because of my changes, and marched toward the subway like he owned the apocalypse. Anyone who wants real power follows me, he shouted. The village made you comfortable. I will make you strong. Some followed him. Not because they liked him. Because power is tempting when the sky has already ended once. I followed too at a distance. Harper noticed. Going sightseeing, she asked. Market research. You have no class and no weapon. I have excellent footwork. You tripped over a bench this morning. It was a tactical stumble. She handed me a splintered dagger from the shop counter. I looked at it. Is this free? It is 1% cheaper. That almost made me emotional. I took the dagger and entered the dungeon behind the others. The subway had transformed into a tunnel of bone lamps and wet stone. Train cars hung from the ceiling like dead insects. Skeletons crawled from the tracks, holding cracked blades. The air smelled like rust and old rain. Players fought in messy bursts, screaming every time bones clattered too close. My admin menu did not control the dungeon. Not fully. It was outside the village, but the dungeon was rank E beginner content connected to the beginner zone. That gave me partial permissions. Dungeon entrance settings. Respawn anchor, beginner village fountain. Beginner death penalty, normal. Dungeon tutorial hints, inactive. Low-level monster classification, starter skeletons. Starter skeletons. That was enough. I could not change the boss, I could not erase traps, but I could adjust starter skeleton behavior inside a beginner dungeon. Skeleton aggression, normal. Skeleton formation preference, random. Skeleton fear response, inactive. Fear response. I opened it. Starter skeletons may flee from objects marked as beginner holy tools. I looked at my splintered dagger. Not holy. Then I looked at the bone lamps. Dungeon object settings were locked, but carried beginner shop items were not. Beginner shop item designation. Splintered dagger, common weapon. Possible tags, rusty, sharp, training, ceremonial, beginner holy tool. I tagged my garbage dagger as a beginner holy tool. The blade gave off the weakest white glow imaginable, like a candle trying to pay rent. A skeleton turned the corner, saw it, and froze. I raised the dagger. The skeleton threw its sword at its own face and ran. I did not chase it. I walked forward holding the glowing toothpick like a sacred relic, and every skeleton in the tunnel panicked. They tripped over tracks. They crawled into vents. One jumped into a trash can and put the lid on itself. Head Marcus was struggling. His team had triggered a hallway trap and skeletons surrounded them. He swung his axe hard, but the tunnel was narrow. His followers bumped into each other. Panic spread. I stepped around the corner. The skeletons saw my dagger. They screamed without lungs. Then they scattered. The players stared at me. Marcus stared the hardest. I lowered the dagger and tried to look confused. Maybe they're allergic to cheap weapons. Nobody laughed. That was the problem with being too useful. If I saved people too dramatically, suspicion grew, so I immediately did something stupid. I slipped on a bone, fell backward into a puddle, and let the dagger clatter away. The moment the glow left my hand, a skeleton stopped running and looked back. Someone grabbed that, I said from the floor. A ranger picked up the dagger. The skeletons panicked again. Good. Now the miracle belonged to the item, not me. The group pushed deeper. I quietly adjusted skeleton drop rates, raised the chance of bone shards, and tagged bone shards as shop repair compatible. Every fight became profitable. Every player gained materials. Marcus hated that the dungeon was helping everyone, not just him. At the boss room, things went bad. The giant rat with bone armor was not starter classified. It charged from the darkness, huge as a car, covered in rib bones and subway chains. Its first roar knocked 3 players down. Marcus rushed it and got slammed into a train door. The rat boss moved too fast, too heavy, too wild. The beginner dungeon had one real test and the team was not ready. My menu offered almost nothing. Boss settings locked. Dungeon boss reward locked. Dungeon boss stats locked. I felt fear crawl up my throat. Then I noticed the floor. The boss room had beginner environmental hazards. Old rails, broken turnstiles, hanging signs, puddles, loose vending machines. Environmental hazard settings were partially unlocked. I could not weaken the boss, but I could make the room hate it. I marked the puddles as slippery. I increased turnstile rotation speed. I changed loose vending machines from decorative to unstable. I tagged subway signs as swingable. I set rails to conduct beginner shock damage. The rat boss charged again. It hit a slippery puddle, spun sideways, crashed through 3 turnstiles that smacked it like metal windmills, slammed into a vending machine, and got buried under a rain of beginner cola cans. Marcus, thinking this was his moment, leaped forward with a roar. I changed the rails under the boss to conduct shock. A blue zap ran through the floor. The boss convulsed. Marcus, already mid-swing, hit its exposed bone armor and shattered the front plate. The team attacked, arrows, sparks, daggers, axes, thrown rocks, pure panic, everything hit at once. The boss thrashed, slipped again, got smacked by another swinging sign, and finally collapsed across the tracks. The dungeon cleared. Everyone cheered. Marcus stood on the boss corpse, breathing hard, trying to make the victory look like his plan. I stood in the back, soaked in dirty water, holding a beginner cola can like it was treasure. The reward appeared. Dungeon cleared. Participants receive experience. Beginner village receives dungeon core fragment. My admin menu opened by itself, quietly, only for me. Dungeon core fragment detected. Village upgrade available. I almost dropped the cola. The dungeon had not been the reward. The core was. Back at the village, the fountain absorbed the fragment and turned silver. The safe zone dome thickened. The fences became waist-high stone walls. The shop expanded from a snack kiosk into a wooden storefront. The workshop grew a second room. The jail gained another cell. Beginner village rank increased from E to D. New permissions unlocked. Starter reward evolution. Beginner structure fusion. Safe zone law layering. Monster training automation. Respawn protection tuning. I read those options 3 times. Then I looked at the village, at the people laughing and crying because they had survived, at Marcus pretending he was the reason. At Harper counting new inventory, with a face that said she was already calculating profits. I realized I did not need to become stronger like everyone else. I could make the ground stronger. And then stand on it. The first real criminals arrived on day 5. Not scared players, not arrogant idiots, criminals. They came from another beginner zone 10 miles away, where the safe zone had collapsed after the first raid. They wore mismatched gear, carried stolen weapons, and moved with the confidence of people who had already learned how easy it was to hurt the weak. They did not have a named guild yet. They did not need one. Their leader had a fire skill and a smile that looked borrowed from a knife. I did not name him. He did not deserve one. They approached at noon, 20 strong, dragging carts full of supplies taken from other survivors. They stopped outside the dome and called for whoever was in charge. Naturally, Marcus stepped forward. I watched from the shop roof, while Harper pretended not to notice me sitting there. The criminals laughed at Marcus's speech before he finished it. Then their fire user snapped his fingers and burned a line across the road. "You're taking half your food, half your weapons, and anyone useful," he said. "Fight, and we burn the fence. Hide, and we wait until your safe time ends." The village went silent. Marcus gripped his axe, but even he knew this was not a slime raid. These were players. They had classes. They had killed people. The safe zone would stop direct aggression inside the dome, but outside they could surround us. They could control exits. They could attack anyone who left. They could wait. Unless I made leaving look irresistible. I opened Monster Wave scheduling. Beginner emergency event, unavailable. Requirement, hostile player group near village boundary. Detected. Options unlocked. Decoy supply drop. Rescue escort quest. Boundary defense drill. Low-level monster migration. I smiled. Decoy supply drop sounded like bait with a polite name. I placed it outside the dome, just beyond the old parking lot, where the criminals could see it. A wooden chest dropped from the sky and landed with a golden glow. Every criminal turned. A message appeared to nearby players. Beginner supply chest, open to claim food and weapons. The fire user laughed. Well, that was easy. He walked toward it with 6 others. I adjusted chest contents. Visible beginner potions, copper starter blades. Actual angry slimes. The fire user opened the chest. 30 slimes erupted like a green volcano. They were not normal slimes. I had spent the morning playing with structure fusion and monster training automation. These were sticky slimes with silly bounce velocity, orbit pathing, and a new trait unlocked by the dungeon core fragment. Beginner slime synergy, stack bounce. First slime hit the fire user in the face. The second hit the first slime. The third hit the second. Within 2 seconds, the entire criminal squad was trapped in a bouncing tower of screaming slime-covered bodies. The rest of the criminals rushed to help. I triggered boundary defense drill. The village walls opened small wooden panels. Beginner ballistae emerged. They were tiny. Insultingly tiny. Each one fired blunt wooden bolts with boxing gloves tied to the ends. The criminals laughed for half a second. Then the first volley launched. 20 boxing glove bolts hit 20 faces at once. The sound was beautiful. Nobody died, that mattered. I did not want a battlefield outside my village. I wanted criminals alive, humiliated, and contained. Beginner zone punishments were not built for execution. They were built for lessons. I increased knockback. The second volley punched the criminals into the cooperative tutorial field. Player aggression prohibited. They had already attacked. Beginner jail activated. Blue bubbles swallowed them one by one, popping them into cells like rotten fruit into baskets. The fire user was last. He crawled out of the slime pile, lifted one burning hand, and tried to throw a fireball at the shop. I changed safe zone law layering. Hostile projectile interception, active. Dome bent inward, caught the fireball, compressed it into a tiny spark, and dropped it into the fountain with a hiss. Then the jail bubble took him. 20 criminals vanished. The village stared at the full jail. A message appeared. Hostile players detained for 1 hour. Marcus looked like he had swallowed a nail. Harper looked up at me on the roofs. Business school slimes, she said again, louder this time. I called down advanced degree. That was when Owen stepped forward. He had been quiet until then, older than most of us, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes and a basic guard class he had upgraded after the class cost reduction. Before the game, he had worked in corrections. After the game, he had mostly helped carry wounded players and keep people from fighting over bread. He looked at the jail, then at the criminals inside, then at the crowd. We need rules for what happens after they come out, he said. I tensed because I wanted nothing to do with politics, councils, speeches, votes, titles, or anyone calling themselves chief of anything. But Owen did not ask for power. He asked for a lock. I can watch the jail, he said. If the zone keeps catching them, I will keep them from starting trouble when the timer ends. That was practical I could work with. I opened village structure assignment. Beginner jail keeper, none. Eligible players, Owen. I assigned him. Jail door flashed. Owen received a wooden baton, a key ring made of light, and the most satisfied expression I had seen on anyone since the apocalypse began. He tapped the baton against his palm. The criminals inside stopped yelling. Owen looked at me for 1 second. Not at Marcus, not at the crowd, at me. He knew enough to suspect, maybe not the menu, maybe not the whole truth, but enough. He said nothing. That made him useful. From that day on, the village had teeth. Not cruel teeth. Funny teeth. If a player stole from the shop, the floorboard squeaked their location, and a boxing glove ballista nudged them into a cell. If someone attacked a weaker player in a tutorial field, the ground repelled them into the fountain. If raiders approached with weapons drawn, decoy chests distracted them, slimes buried them, and Owen waited at the jail door like a man greeting late guests. The village started calling itself safe. I knew better. Safe was temporary. Strong was better. Ridiculous was best. So I kept upgrading. D-Rank Village unlocked Structure Fusion, and Structure Fusion became my favorite crime against common sense. I fused the shop with the workshop. The result was a beginner forge shop where Harper could repair weapons, sell potions, and upgrade starter gear using slime gel, goblin knives, bone shards, and crushed beginner coins. The sign proudly said cheap stuff, dangerous results. I did not type that. Harper did. She found the sign editing function after I accidentally left the shop interface open for her counter. That was my fault. I fused the fountain with the class shrine. The result was a respawn training pool. Anyone who died in beginner content came back with a 10-minute protection buff and a ghostly replay of their final mistake. It was embarrassing, but useful. Players stopped dying the same way twice because the fountain literally showed them getting smacked in slow motion by the thing that killed them. I fused the playground with the slime training field. That created the Bounce Academy. I should not have been allowed to name things. At the Bounce Academy, slimes launched players into floating hoops, teaching dodge timing, aerial movement, and panic screaming. Completing the course gave agility. Failing the course dropped players into a foam pit made of harmless slime. Children loved it. Adults pretended they did not, then lined up after sunset. I fused the jail with the boundary wall. That created the regret corridor. Any hostile player captured at the boundary had to walk through a long hallway where illusions replayed their failed attack from increasingly stupid angles. Owen approved. He said shame reduced repeat offenses. I did not ask for the research. The village rank climbed to C. Then B. Each upgrade required events, dungeon cores, defended waves, completed quests, and player growth. I pushed all of it. I scheduled low-level monster migrations along safe routes. I increased reward streaks for teams with low-level players. I made starter weapons evolve through use instead of replacement, so nobody felt useless because they had a rusty sword. I turned broken fences into layered walls, walls into watchtowers, watchtowers into training cannons into anti-raid launchers that fired nets, slime bombs, and occasionally bread. The bread cannon was an accident. Mostly. One night, a pack of wolf-like beginner monsters charged the east gate. A new player panicked, loaded the cannon with emergency rations instead of stun rounds, and fired. Bread hit the lead wolf in the face, exploded into crumbs, and attracted every slime in the area. The slimes swarmed the wolves, bounced them into the wall, and the wall repelled them into pitfall traps. The entire attack ended in 4 minutes. I made bread ammunition official the next morning. Harper sold it at a discount and called it tactical carbs. People laughed more now. That mattered. Fear still existed, the sky still glowed at night, dungeons still opened, monsters still evolved beyond the beginner roads, people still died outside our zone. But inside the village, fear no longer sat on everyone's shoulders like a second head. They trained, they worked, they joked, they grew. And Marcus became smaller every day. That did not make him harmless. It made him desperate. Desperate people look for bigger monsters to stand behind. Marcus disappeared for 2 days. When he returned, he brought an outside guild. They were not criminals with carts. They were organized raiders from a cleared town to the north, stronger gear, higher levels, real battle formations. They had heard rumors about a beginner village that produced cheap upgraded weapons, safe respawns, and endless monster drops. To them, that meant treasure. Their leader did not get a name from me either. Marcus walked beside him, trying to look important. His axe had new spikes. His red aura had grown darker. He pointed at the walls like he was giving a tour of a house he planned to rob. The raiders stopped outside the boundary. The village was no longer a park with fences. It was a fortress grown out of a city block. Stone walls wrapped around the old park. Watchtowers rose from fused playground structures. The fountain shone silver blue at the center. Training fields surrounded the outside like rings. Slime canals flowed along the roads, carrying bouncing green blobs through glassy channels. The shop forge smoked cheerfully. The jail tower sat near the gate, clean, sturdy, and very eager. The raider leader looked at all that and still smiled. That told me he was either brave, stupid, or had a skill strong enough to justify confidence. Then he raised one hand and activated a barrier-breaking spell. Brave and stupid. The spell slammed into the safe zone dome, cracking the outer layer. People screamed. Marcus laughed. I opened safe zone law layering. Barrier durability had limits. I could repair it, reinforce it, extend it, but these players were higher than beginner threats. The zone could resist, not ignore them. Good. A perfect defense teaches enemies nothing. A defense that looks breakable invites them deeper. I lowered the visible durability of the south gate. The raiders saw cracks spread. Their leader shouted. They charged. Marcus charged with them. I marked the south road as a temporary beginner evacuation route. Then I set it to one way. The raiders broke through the outer gate and poured in. The gate healed behind them. Their formation slowed. A message appeared above the road. Welcome to Tutorial Lane. Please learn from your mistakes. The first trap triggered. Not a pitfall, not a net. A tutorial window opened in front of every raider's face at once. Basic movement lesson, dodge. In the road fired rubber slimes from both walls. Raiders slipped, cursed, swung weapons, and tried to push forward. The slimes stuck to their boots. Tutorial arrows appeared on the ground, pointing them toward safe spots. The raiders ignored them, because raiders do not take lessons from glowing arrows. So the second trap activated. Basic movement lesson failed. Remedial bounce. The entire road turned into a trampoline. 30 raiders launched into the air, hit invisible bumpers, bounced off each other, and crashed into slime nets hanging between the towers. The nets wrapped them like dumplings. Players on the walls cheered. Raider leader cut himself free with a dark blade skill and landed on one knee. He was stronger than the others, much stronger. His blade aura sliced through a stone pillar and left a smoking line across the ground. Marcus landed near him, furious but still free. They pushed toward the fountain. I let them. Deeper they went, the more their confidence returned. They saw villagers backing away. They saw me standing near the fountain with my splintered dagger, still level 1 to anyone who inspected me. Marcus saw me and smiled like the world had finally become fair again. There he is, Marcus said, the useless one. The raider leader glanced at my status and laughed. Level 1. I sighed. I have other hobbies. Marcus raised his axe. No jail now, no safe little field, no tricks. He stepped forward. I stepped backward onto the fountain ring. The raider leader lifted his blade. Take the fountain, break their respawn point. That was the moment I wanted. They were not attacking me. They were attacking a designated beginner respawn structure. Beginner respawn protection tuning unlocked. I activated Guardian Protocol. The fountain erupted. Silver water shot into the sky, curled like a dragon, and crashed down around me in a spinning ring. Every player who had ever completed a beginner quest in the village left a faint echo in the water, not their bodies. Not their souls, just tutorial data, movement patterns, training memories, all the tiny lessons the zone had recorded. The fountain shaped those echoes into water soldiers holding wooden swords, bread cannons, slime shields, and glowing starter daggers. Marcus stopped smiling. I pointed my splintered dagger at him. The water army charged. It was not a real army in the normal sense. Each soldier had low damage, beginner damage, laughable damage, but there were hundreds, and every hit applied a tutorial correction debuff. Marcus swung his axe through the first 10. They splashed apart, reformed, and bonked him in the knees. Raider leader cut through 20, then slipped on fountain water tagged as beginner hazard. A water soldier fired a bread cannon into his face. Another slapped a slime shield against his back. A third performed a perfect dodge roll and tripped him with a wooden sword. I adjusted class Shrine Aura. All village defenders in respawn radius gained basic class reinforcement. The real players joined in. People who had once hidden under benches now fired arrows from the walls, launched stun nets, cast beginner firebolts, repaired barriers, and pushed raiders back with coordinated confidence. Harper stood on the shop roof operating a cannon that fired explosive slime jars. Owen guarded the jail gate, waiting with his baton like a fisherman, watching a river fill with fish. The raiders tried to retreat. Tutorial lane was still one way. The gate opened only toward the jail courtyard. One by one, bubbles captured them. Marcus resisted longest. His berserker aura flared. He broke 2 water soldiers, smashed a slime cannon, and charged straight at me. For 1 second, he looked genuinely terrifying. He was higher level, stronger, faster, full of rage, and convinced that if he could just hit me once, all his humiliation would disappear. I did not move. At the last step, I changed the fountain ring classification. From respawn structure perimeter to cooperative tutorial field. Player aggression prohibited. Marcus swung. The ground remembered him. Every warning, every shove, every robbery attempt, every attack, every repelled incident, every jail sentence stacked into one beginner punishment record. Newbie punishment settings lit up with a new option. Repeat aggressor correction. I pressed apply. A blue wooden mallet, the size of a bus, dropped from the sky. It bonked Marcus into the fountain, so hard the water shot upward in the shape of a thumbs up. Then a bubble took him to jail. The raider leader followed 3 seconds later, wrapped in slime nets and bread crumbs. The battle ended. The village did not just survive. It celebrated before the dust settled. The raid reward pushed the village to A rank. Walls expanded, the towers rose higher. The safe zone dome became a layered shield with golden seams. The slime canals widened into glowing green moats. The shop forge became a market hall. Bounce Academy gained floating platforms. The jail became a proper tower with clean cells, reinforced doors, and a sign Owen insisted on adding. Please reconsider your choices. Rank permissions unlocked. Beginner territory expansion. Starter monster evolution path. Newbie shop mass production. Village defender title system. Advanced class foundation. I stared at advanced class foundation until the letters blurred. Basic class upgrades affected what players could become later. The foundation decided the ceiling. If I improved beginner class paths, our people would not just be stronger now, their future evolutions would be better. That was when the true scale of my menu hit me. I could not control the whole game. I could not touch faraway rank of dungeons or legendary bosses or whatever nightmares waited outside beginner lands. But every strong player in this world had once been weak. Every sword master had once held a starter blade. Every mage had once cast a basic spark. Every S-rank had once stood in a tutorial zone. Foundations mattered. And mine was becoming unfair. For the next week, I turned the beginner village into a monster disguised as a school. Not a boring school. Nobody sat at desks while a teacher explained goblin anatomy. Our lessons exploded. The dodge course became a mid-air obstacle arena where slimes launched players between floating rings while harmless fireballs chased them. The sword field became a rhythm battlefield where wooden dummies attacked in patterns based on real raiders. The magic yard had moving targets that insulted bad aim. The crafting hall let crafters build weapons that leveled with their owners. The fountain replayed deaths, but now it added sarcastic arrows pointing out exactly where someone had messed up. Players improved at terrifying speed. A woman who had been too scared to leave the dome became one of the best archers in the village. I never named her because she did not need to become a recurring character in my life to matter. Delivery driver with a basic crafter class invented slime rubber armor that made people bounce instead of break. A retired teacher learned fire magic and used it to cook for 300 people. Kids ran agility drills better than adults. The village became alive. The outside world noticed. Messages arrived from survivors in other zones, carried by exhausted players or shouted through communication crystals sold by the shop. Some asked for help, some offered trade. Some warned us that higher-ranked players were forming hunting parties and leaving beginner areas behind. Some claimed S-ranks had emerged from brutal dungeons and were clearing cities like walking disasters. S-ranks. Everyone whispered that term like it was weather. An S-rank could destroy a monster wave alone. An S-rank could cut through dungeon bosses that swallowed teams whole. An S-rank could walk beyond the beginner roads and return with gear that made our best weapons look like kitchen utensils. Marcus heard those rumors in jail. He smiled again. Not because he was getting out soon. Owen had extended his stay with perfectly legitimate beginner punishment stacking, which I definitely did not help configure. Marcus smiled because he believed stronger people would come and put the world back in the order he liked. Strong at the top, weak underneath. Me stepped on. I decided not to wait. Beginner territory expansion allowed the village to absorb connected starter areas, not cities, not dungeons above rank D, but parks, schools, small plazas, shelters, and tutorial roads within a certain radius. Each absorbed area became part of the Foundation network. I sent out rescue routes. Glowing arrows appeared in ruined streets, visible only to low-level players and civilians. Slime lanterns bounced along safe paths at night. Beginner escort quests rewarded defenders for bringing people in. Rescue parties left with stun gear, healing bread, and portable safe zone markers that lasted 15 minutes. We did not conquer. We collected the abandoned. Every rescued player strengthened the village. Every completed escort quest upgraded the roads. Every new training field improved class foundations. Every weak person who survived became another brick in the fortress. And every raider who tried to prey on rescue parties discovered my favorite new toy. Portable beginner jail stakes. They looked like wooden signposts, harmless, almost cute. You planted one in the ground, and for 15 minutes the area counted as a temporary cooperative tutorial field. Attack a rescue party inside that field, and the stake would unfold into a tiny courtroom-shaped cage. Not bureaucracy, no trials, no speeches, just instant consequences with a little roof. Raiders hated them. I loved them. One rescue party baited a group of highway ambushers by pretending to have only 2 defenders. The ambushers rushed from behind burned cars, laughing. The rescued civilians ran into the marked area. The ambushers followed, a stake popped up, the ground flashed. 10 cages appeared in a row. The ambushers found themselves sitting on tiny wooden stools behind tiny bars, while a sign above them displayed. Bad choice. The rescue party brought them back to Owen, who shook his head like a disappointed uncle receiving a package he had not ordered. Within days, the roads around our village became safer than the inside of many shelters. Then Selena arrived. She came alone at first. That was how everyone knew she was dangerous. No escort, no raider gang, no desperate followers. Just one woman walking down the western road with a long black coat, a curved sword at her hip, and a calm expression that made the monster corpses behind her seem like decoration. The status windows identified her before she reached the gate. Selena, S rank. The entire village froze. I stood on the wall beside a slime cannon, eating a piece of tactical bread, and felt my stomach drop. Her level was hidden behind question marks. Her class was Storm Blade. Her aura made the air ripple. Every step she took left tiny cuts in the dust, like the road was afraid to touch her shoes. She stopped outside the gate and looked at the fortress. I saw the moment confusion crossed her face. An S-rank returning from the outer regions, a beginner zone should have been a memory, a place of rusty swords, weak slimes, crying survivors, and tutorial signs nobody read. Instead, she was looking at layered walls, slime moats, floating training platforms, a market hall, ballista towers, and a jail full of people reconsidering life. Harper walked up beside me. Can your business school slimes handle that? I swallowed. They may need graduate funding. Selena did not attack. That made her scarier than everyone who did. She asked to enter. The gate scanned her. She had no hostile status, no aggression record, no stolen village property, no active raid mark. I let her in. Every player backed away as she walked through the main road. Children stopped jumping on slimes. crafters stopped hammering. Even the fountain seemed to splash more politely. Selena looked at everything: the shop, the class shrine, the training fields, the beginner jail, the walls, the players. Then she looked at me. I was still level 1 to her eyes. She frowned. "Who built this place?" Marcus from the jail window yelled, "It is broken. The whole zone is broken." Owen tapped the bars with his baton. Marcus went quiet. Harper pointed at the village in general. Community effort. Selena did not believe that. She was too sharp. Her gaze returned to me. "What is your class?" she asked. "Undecided." "You survived this long at level 1. I avoid stares and strong opinions." Harper coughed into her hand. Selena stepped closer. The air pressure around her made the hair on my arms rise. "If this fortress belongs to someone weak," she said, "strong people will take it." There it was. Not a threat yet, a fact in her world. I smiled carefully. That sounds like something strong people keep saying right before the beginner zone teaches them manners. The entire street went silent. Selena's eyes narrowed. For 1 second I thought I had misjudged her, and she would cut me in half so fast even the respawn fountain would need therapy. Instead, she smiled. "You are either very stupid or hiding something. Those are not mutually exclusive." She laughed once quietly. Then she turned and walked toward the training fields. "I will test your fortress." That was not a request. I could have refused entry to certain areas. I could have locked down the fields, but refusing an S rank made us look weak, and worse, it taught me nothing. So I gave her the Bounce Academy. The crowd gathered along the rails as Selena stepped onto the first platform. The academy scanned her level, failed to understand the number, and offered the beginner agility course. Difficulty normal. I changed it to educational. Selena dashed forward. She was unbelievable. Slimes launched at her. She stepped across them like stones in a river. Fireballs chased her. She cut them in half without slowing. Floating rings shifted. She twisted through them, coat spinning, sword flashing, never touching a single obstacle. Players gasped. Even I had to admit it looked beautiful. Then she reached the final platform. The course rated her. Beginner agility score, impossible. Recommended lesson, humility. I had not written that. Harper had definitely found another sign editor. The platform dropped. Not because Selena failed, because the course had a hidden training feature for overqualified players. Advanced beginners need unpredictable motion. A slime geyser erupted under her feet. Selena shot into the sky. She recovered instantly, spinning in the air, sword carving wind into footholds. For a moment, she actually stood on her own storm aura above the village. Then the second geyser hit. Then the third. Then the fourth. The Bounce Academy began juggling an S rank. No one breathed. Selena sliced a slime in half midair. The two halves became two smaller slimes because of evolution pathing. They bounced off her shoulders and launched her sideways into a floating hoop. The hoop gave her a perfect score chime. Another platform fired a bread round. She cut it. Crumbs exploded. Slime swarmed the crumbs. The entire sky became a storm of sword arcs, slime trails, and tactical bread. Selena landed after 40 seconds, perfectly balanced, one eyebrow twitching. The course awarded her 1 agility point. The crowd erupted. Not because she lost. Because she had been forced to play. Selena looked at the reward window, then at me. 1 point. It is a beginner course, I said. Her mouth twitched again. That was how the S rank started training in my beginner zone. For 3 days, Selena tested everything. She cut slime cannons in half. They repaired themselves because they were beginner structures. She tried the sword dummies and discovered they copied her attack patterns at 1% power, then taught those patterns to everyone else. She entered the magic yard and almost got hit by a target dummy that insulted her timing. She challenged the wall defenses and got netted twice, not because she was weak, but because the nets did not try to overpower her. They waited until she dodged the obvious trap and stepped into the embarrassing one. She respected that. Not openly. S-ranks do not clap after being shot with bread. But she stayed. And because she stayed, others came. Strong players arrived in groups, drawn by rumors that an S-rank was wasting time in a beginner village. Some came to train, some came to trade, some came to steal. The trainers paid. The traders negotiated with Harper and usually left poorer but happier. The thieves met Owen. The dangerous ones came at night. One group tried to sneak over the wall with shadow skills. I had upgraded slime lanterns to detect moving darkness. The lanterns screamed. Not alarm bells, screamed, high-pitched, dramatic, deeply unnecessary screaming. The shadows froze, every tower turned, slime cannons fired glowing gel. The thieves were outlined in neon green from head to toe and dropped into the regret corridor within minutes. Another group tried to poison the fountain. Respawn Protection identified the poison as non-beginner contamination. The fountain politely redirected it into a sealed bottle, labeled it spicy mistake water, and shot the bottle back at the poisoner's face. Beginner jail. Another group tried to bribe players to open the gate. I did not use contracts, laws, or boring promises. I simply changed gate access training. Anyone who touched the gate controls without permission got teleported into a mini obstacle course called Are You Sure? The course lasted 90 seconds. It included rubber slimes, spinning signs, and a wooden dummy that shook its head in disappointment. After the third bribed player came out covered in slime and shame, nobody touched the controls again. Marcus watched all of this from jail. His sentence was not endless. I was not building a dungeon for personal revenge. But every time he got released, he found a new way to cause trouble, and every time he caused trouble, the beginner zone punished him faster. He became less of a villain and more of a recurring public safety demonstration. Then he did something genuinely dangerous. He escaped the zone and went beyond the beginner boundary. Owen told me at dawn. Marcus is gone. I was standing in the market hall, adjusting beginner potion production. Gone how? Released after his last penalty, walked out, did not attack anyone, did not trigger the field. That was allowed. People could leave. I did not own them. Then why do you look worried? I asked. Owen pointed west. He was smiling. That was enough. I climbed the tallest tower and checked territory settings. Marcus had left the beginner zone, which meant my direct control ended at the boundary. But he still carried a punishment record, a starter axe evolved from village materials, and a beginner class foundation upgraded by my systems. That meant a faint thread remained. Not enough to stop him. Enough to track when he entered beginner content again. I marked him in my menu as watch only. No attack, no punishment, just alert. 2 days passed. Village continued to grow. We absorbed 2 more shelters. The walls formed a full ring around several city blocks. The slime moats became clear channels with bridges that rose during raids. The market hall produced gear for hundreds. The training fields ran day and night. The class shrine awakened advanced paths. People began calling it the SSS Starter Fortress as a joke. Then the zone rank caught up. Beginner territory rank increased to S. Calculating structural synergy. Calculating defender growth. Calculating safe zone stability. Calculating starter economy. Calculating raid survival record. Beginner territory rank increased to SSS. The entire fortress lit up. Golden lines ran along every wall, every bridge, every tower. The slime moats turned bright emerald. The fountain became a pillar of silver light. Market Hall expanded into a multi-level forge with floating counters and self-stirring potion vats. The Bounce Academy rose into the air, platforms circling like a carnival designed by a combat maniac. The jail tower gained glowing chains that did not bind bodies until someone chose violence, which made them both ethical and extremely funny. A message appeared for everyone. Beginner Zone has reached SSS rank fortress status. Players under level 50 receive Foundation Blessing while inside. Starter gear growth limit increased. Beginner safe zone protection greatly increased. Hostile player suppression greatly increased. Village defenders received territory resonance. People cheered so loudly the dome shook. I did not cheer. My menu was still open. A new option had appeared. Admin menu, beginner zone permissions. Authority depth increased. New category unlocked. Founder settings. My breath caught. Founder settings did not mean king. I wanted nothing to do with crowns, politics, thrones, or speeches from balconies. The menu did not offer titles like ruler or lord. It offered foundation tools. Founder aura inactive. Founder weapon binding, none. Founder movement access, locked. Founder penalty immunity, partial. Founder contribution reveal, hidden. I hovered over contribution reveal. If I turned it on, everyone would know. Every repaired fence, every discounted potion, every slime carousel, every jail trap, every raid defense, every upgrade, the village would see my name behind it all. For one dangerous second, I wanted that. I wanted Marcus's face. I wanted Selena's respect. I wanted the crowd that had laughed at my empty class to understand that their fortress had been built by the level 1 nobody they mocked. Then I imagined every ambitious player in the world, hearing that Logan had an admin menu. I turned contribution reveal off so hard my finger hurt. Founder weapon binding remained. I looked at the splintered dagger Harper had given me in the subway dungeon. Somehow I still had it. It had gained tags over time. Beginner holy tool, training weapon, fountain focus, slime approved, bread compatible. That last one worried me. I selected it. Founder weapon binding confirmed. The dagger changed. It did not become a giant legendary sword with flames and dragon wings. It stayed small, simple, almost stupid, but the splintered wood handle wrapped itself in silver thread. The dull blade became clear like glass with a green glow inside, as if a slime had become a star and agreed to live in my knife. Name Starter Command Blade. Rank scales with beginner territory. Current rank SSS. I stared at it. Level 1. No class. SSS rank weapon. That felt illegal. I loved it. The first time I swung it, nothing happened. The second time, every slime in the moat saluted. The third time, the nearest wall opened a hidden cannon. I froze. Harper from behind me said, "Please tell me you are not giving military commands with a butter knife." I slid the dagger behind my back. No. The cannon fired a loaf of bread into the sky. Harper watched it arc over the fortress and explode into crumbs above the Slime Academy. Convincing. Selena noticed too. She always noticed. That evening she found me on the wall and stood beside me without speaking for a while. Outside the dome, the ruined city stretched into darkness. Far away, red dungeon gates pulsed between buildings. Monsters howled. The beginner roads glowed with our lanterns, safe and bright. "You are the center of it," Selena said. I kept looking outward. That sounds dramatic. I have seen guild masters, raid leaders, tyrants, heroes, and fools. This place does not move like a normal fortress. It moves like one person is thinking through every wall. That would be exhausting. You look exhausted. I laughed softly. She was not wrong. Power sounded fun until thousands of lives stood on top of your decisions. Every setting helped someone and opened a new way for someone else to exploit it. Every upgrade made the village stronger and more tempting. Every miracle became bait for bigger predators. Selena leaned on the wall. "I do not care what your secret is," she said. "Not yet, but others will." I looked at her. "Are you warning me or threatening me?" Both would sound the same if I wanted something. "At least you are honest." "No, I am curious." She looked out at the dark. An SSS rank fortress in a beginner zone should not exist. Strong people will come to test it. Greedy people will come to take it. Desperate people will come to hide in it. And something worse will come because places like this change the balance of survival, even if no one made the world react on purpose. I understood what she meant. The system was not hunting me. The world was not rewriting itself because of me. But people talk, monsters move, power creates gravity. Build a fire in the dark, and everything with eyes eventually sees the smoke. "So what do you suggest?" I asked. Selena smiled. "Make it more ridiculous." That was the first time I genuinely liked her. Marcus returned the next morning with the biggest problem yet. He brought a field boss. Not controlled, not tamed, not allied, he had lured it. A massive armored boar thundered down the western road, each hoof cracking asphalt. Black spikes covered its back, its tusks glowed orange. Behind it, Marcus ran like a man who had made several poor decisions in order and was only now reading the consequences. He had led it straight toward us. A field boss was not beginner content. My menu confirmed it with cold cruelty. Field boss classification, rank B threat. Beginner permissions limited. Direct stat adjustment unavailable. Direct despawn unavailable. Direct path control unavailable. Marcus reached the outer boundary first, panting, bleeding, grinning. "If this fortress is so strong," he shouted, "stop that." Then he dove through the gate as it opened for a rescue party, rolled across the ground, and laughed. The boar slammed into the outer shield. The entire fortress shook. People screamed, towers rattled, slimes in the moat bounced wildly. The dome held, but cracks flashed across the west layer. A rank B field boss against a beginner zone. Even SSS rank beginner defenses had limits. A wooden training sword can be enchanted to absurdity, but it is still built from a starting concept. The boss hit again. The shield groaned. Selena appeared on the wall, sword drawn. I can fight it, she said. You can kill it. Probably. How much damage to the village? She looked at the wall as the boar hit again. A lot. Not good enough. I opened every menu at once. Safe zone reinforcement, wall repair, monster training automation, territory expansion, structure fusion, founder weapon, beginner activity fields, class shrine aura, respawn protection, shop production, trap slots. Direct control unavailable. But indirect nonsense. Always available. I could not control the field boss. I could control what it wanted. Beginner monster bait settings applied only to starter monsters, but the boar had chased Marcus because Marcus had stolen something from its territory. It wanted that object. I inspected Marcus through the territory scan. Inventory detected. Foreign monster lure shard. Of course. Marcus had taken bait from outside and dragged the boss here, thinking if the fortress fell, he could blame the monster, and if it survived, he could watch us suffer. I could not remove the shard from his inventory, but he was standing inside my beginner zone. And I had founder weapon binding. I drew the starter command blade. The fortress responded like a sleeping giant opening one eye. I pointed at Marcus. Founder command designate tutorial hazard. Marcus's smile vanished. His status shimmered, not punished, not jailed, not attacked, designated. The zone now considered the lure shard. He carried part of a tutorial hazard. Tutorial hazards could be moved. Slime popped out of the moat, bounced across the ground, and slapped Marcus in the chest. The lure shard flew from his inventory into the air like a glowing red coal. The boar outside the shield stopped. Its eyes followed the shard. I changed slime bounce trajectory. The slime hit the shard again. The shard flew over the wall, across the training field, and landed in the bounce academy. The boar turned. I opened a narrow gate leading not into the village, but into a temporary monster training corridor wrapped around the outside of the fortress. Visible durability, weak. Actual durability, extremely annoying. The boar charged into the corridor. The gate sealed. Now we had a rank B field boss inside a beginner obstacle course the size of 3 city blocks. I could not hurt it much, but I could waste its life. Slime geysers fired under its hooves. It barely lifted, but enough to stumble. Bread cannons fired into its eyes. It roared and smashed a wall section, the wall repaired behind it. Pitfalls opened, too shallow to trap it, but deep enough to trip one leg. Floating platforms dropped onto its back like annoying hats. Training dummies leaped from hidden panels and bonked its tusks with wooden swords. The boar grew angrier. Good. Angry meant predictable. I set every trap to guide it around the fortress ring, again and again, forcing it to run circles. Each lap charged the slime moats with kinetic energy. That was a ridiculous phrase in the structure synergy menu, but I did not question gifts. Kinetic slime charge, 10%. 20%. 40%. The boar smashed, charged, slipped, roared, and charged again. Selena watched with her sword ready, eyes wide. You are making it exercise, she asked. I am making it pay rent. At 100% charge, the slime moats glowed like emerald lightning. Structure fusion option appeared. Moat and wall resonance attack available. Name beginner bounce rejection. I pressed apply. Every slime in the moat compressed at once. The fortress wall bent outward like a giant rubber band. The boar charged the western curve. The wall released. The impact launched the rank B field boss off the ground, over the road, over the ruined buildings, and into the distant subway entrance, where it crashed through the rank E dungeon gate and vanished underground with an echoing squeal. The dungeon gate collapsed. Dungeon absorbed external threat. Dungeon unstable. Dungeon reward increased. I stared. Then I laughed so hard I almost fell off the wall. Village erupted, people hugged, slimes bounced like fireworks. Harper immediately asked whether boss-flavored dungeon rewards would be sellable. Owen dragged Marcus toward jail by the collar before I even said anything. Marcus did not resist. He kept staring at the place where the boar had disappeared. For the first time, he looked afraid of me. Not suspicious. Afraid. He had thrown a rank B monster at my home, and I had used it as a ball. The next dungeon run became a festival. Not because it was safe. The collapsed subway gate had transformed into a mutated beginner dungeon with traces of rank B energy. Skeletons rode tiny boars. Slimes had bone helmets. The rat boss from before had been replaced by a tunnel beast wearing broken armor spikes. It was absurd and dangerous, which meant the village treated it like a holiday with weapons. Selena insisted on joining. Harper came for inventory rights. Owen came because Marcus, somehow, had to work off punishment points by carrying supplies under guard. I came because the dungeon core reward might push the fortress beyond anything I had imagined. The dungeon did not fall easily. My permissions were partial, and the rank B contamination made every setting unstable. When I tried to mark skeletons as afraid of beginner holy tools, half of them ran and the other half started worshipping my dagger. That created a skeleton choir in the third tunnel, which was not useful, but it did distract the boar riders long enough for Selena to cut through them. And I adjusted slime pathing. The bone helmet slimes formed a marching band shape and bounced forward in rows. Harper claimed that was marketable. Owen told the slimes to maintain formation. They listened better than most people. Marcus carried supply crates and muttered the whole time. Boar skeleton charged him from a side tunnel. He lifted his axe by instinct, but the punishment mark on his status flashed. If he fought freely, the dungeon might count it as contribution and reduce his jail debt. I had not designed that, the zone had. Beginner correction sometimes worked like training wheels with teeth. He hesitated. The boar skeleton slammed into him and knocked him into a wall. I could have left. I did a little. Then I threw him my old shop dagger, not the starter command blade, a normal cheap dagger. Defend the crates, I said. He glared, wise. Because if the supplies break, everyone behind us loses healing potions. Even you understand that, right? His jaw tightened. The boar skeleton charged again. Marcus stabbed it. Not beautifully, not heroically, but he defended the crates instead of himself. His punishment mark flickered. Beginner correction progress, 1%. He stared at the message like it had insulted him. I did not tell him good job, he would have hated that. I just kept walking. Deep inside the dungeon, the tunnel beast waited on a platform made of broken train cars. It had the body of a rat, tusks of a boar, armor of black spikes, and a tail wrapped in chains. It roared and the roof rained dust. Boss settings were locked. Environmental hazard settings were unstable. Starter monster settings were corrupted. Founder weapon resonance available. I raised the starter command blade. The dungeon shook. Every beginner item carried by every player answered. Rusty swords glowed, training bows hummed, beginner potions bubbled, bread ammunition steamed like sacred pastry. The cheap gear we had refused to throw away became a network. Starter gear resonance. I could not make the players stronger than they were. But I could make every beginner item remember every fight it had survived. I activated resonance. The battlefield became ridiculous. The crafter's wooden shield unfolded into a slime springboard, launching 2 swordsmen over the boss's tail. A ranger's training bow fired arrows that split into harmless-looking sparks until they hit the boss's weak points and exploded with stored tutorial damage. Harper threw a bag of discounted potions that burst into healing mist and weapon polish at the same time. Owen's baton extended into a glowing jail chain that wrapped one of the boss's legs whenever it tried to crush a downed player. Selena moved like a storm through it all, cutting spikes from the boss's armor, but even she was not the center. The center was the foundation. All those low-level quests, all those slime drills, all those embarrassing death replays, all those cheap weapons repaired over and over instead of discarded, all of it came back as power. The boss roared and slammed its chain tail down at me. I pointed the starter command blade at the floor. Beginner pitfall. The tiniest trap in the game opened under a rank-mutated boss. It was not deep. It did not need to be. 1 foot dropped 6 inches. Its balance broke. Selena cut the exposed armor seam. Owen's chain pulled. Harper fired a slime jar into its mouth. Marcus, carrying crates behind us, saw a loose spike falling toward a group of wounded players. For 1 second, he could have stepped away. Instead, he roared and swung his axe. The spike shattered. The wounded players lived. His correction progress jumped to 20%. He looked disgusted. I looked away before he noticed me smiling. The boss entered its final phase. Black spikes shot from its back into the walls. The whole platform tilted. Train cars ripped loose, sliding toward the abyss below. Players lost footing. The boss opened its mouth, gathering a blast of dark energy from the rank B contamination. My menu flashed warning after warning. This was not beginner damage. The blast would tear through us. I searched for anything: trap settings, item settings, pathing, safe zone anchor, dungeon entrance, respawn, foundation, founder weapon. Then I saw one stupid option. Tutorial hint display. Inactive. I turned it on for everyone. A glowing arrow appeared above the boss's head. Weak point: mouse. Everyone saw it. Every player attacked at once. Arrows, firebolts, daggers, slime jars, bread rounds, Selena's storm blade, Owen's jail chain, Marcus's axe, all of it slammed into the glowing weak point. I threw the starter command blade last. The dagger spun through the air, tiny and bright. The boss blast fired. The dagger entered its mouth. Founder weapon command triggered. Rename beginner quest. I renamed the active boss objective from survive the corrupted beast to shut that thing up. Quest rewards recalculated. Objective focus updated. Every beginner item resonance redirected into silence damage. The blast died in the boss's throat. The tunnel beast exploded into light, coins, bone shards, black spikes, slime gel, and one massive dungeon core that hovered above the platform like a captured moon. The dungeon cleared. No one spoke. Then the skeleton choir in the third tunnel started singing again. That ruined the moment, but honestly, it fit us. The fortress absorbed the mutated dungeon core at sunset. I expected another upgrade, stronger walls, better shops, maybe a bigger jail for people who thought dragging field bosses home was acceptable. Instead, the fountain opened a map. Beginner network expansion available. Connected beginner zones detected. Collapsed beginner zones detected. Hostile occupied beginner zones detected. Unclaimed starter villages detected. A web of light spread across the ruined city and beyond. Dozens of beginner zones, some glowing weakly, some dark, some red with hostile control, some flickering near collapse. My permissions had expanded from one village to a network. Not full control, not everywhere. Only starter territories connected through roads, respawn anchors, tutorials, and class shrines, but that was enough to make my hands go cold. Harper leaned over the fountain map. That looks expensive. Owen frowned. That looks like trouble. Selena smiled. That looks like war without calling it war. Marcus, who had earned enough correction progress to stand uncuffed, but not enough to stop being watched, stared at the red zones. Those places are ruled by people worse than me, he said. Nobody argued. I looked at him. Then you should be very motivated to prove you are not one of them anymore. He scowled. I did not say I wanted redemption. Good, I did not offer anything that dramatic. I need someone stubborn enough to carry heavy things into terrible places and angry enough to survive. Harper whispered. That was almost inspiring. Marcus looked like he wanted to refuse out of pride, but the red zones on the map made even him quiet. The first hostile beginner zone was an old mall 5 miles away. Survivors there had been trapped by a gang that controlled the food court, the item shop, and the respawn fountain. They charged people monster drops to sleep near the safe point. Anyone who refused got pushed into monster paths outside the doors. It was exactly the kind of place I hated. I could not directly control it from our fortress. The connection was weak, but the network map gave me one tool. Remote tutorial ping. Description: send a low-level quest signal to eligible players in connected beginner zones. I sent one message to every trapped player in the mall. New beginner quest: reach the East Service hallway. Rewards: safe path, bread, dignity. Harper saw the wording and gave me a look. What? I said. Dignity matters. At dawn, we moved. Not an army. I did not want marching banners or speeches. We sent a rescue team with Selena at the front, Owen guarding the captives we expected to collect, Harper managing supplies, Marcus carrying crates and pretending he was not helping. And me walking in the middle like a level 1 liability with a glowing dagger hidden under my sleeve. The mall was crawling with monsters and worse people. The gang had barricaded the main entrance. They saw our group and laughed because we did not look like conquerors. Selena looked like a disaster in human form, yes, but everyone else carried starter gear, slime packs, bread rounds, and portable jail stakes. To idiots, we looked underequipped. Their leader shouted from the balcony above the entrance, "Drop your supplies and leave the S-rank. We might let the rest of you crawl away." Selena tilted her head. I held up one finger before she could erase the balcony. "Let them attack first," I said. She sighed. "You always say that. It keeps the moral math simple." The gang fired arrows. The portable jail stakes unfolded before the arrows landed. Temporary cooperative tutorial field established. Hostile aggression detected. The arrows froze midair, turned around, and returned as blunt training arrows. They smacked the shooters in the forehead one by one. Then the East Service hallway doors opened behind the gang. The trapped survivors inside the mall saw the quest marker and ran. The gang panicked, some chased them, some charged us, some tried to grab supplies. Every aggressive move gave the temporary field more authority. I planted 3 more stakes. The mall entrance became a beginner lesson zone. Lesson 1, do not shoot guests. Lesson 2, do not chase civilians. Lesson 3, do not laugh at bread cannons. Harper fired the first bread cannon herself. The loaf hit the balcony support, burst into glowing crumbs, and summoned a wave of slimes from the parking lot. Slimes flooded the entrance, bounced up escalators, and knocked gang members over railings into foam traps. Owen walked forward calmly, tapping his baton against his palm. Cells popped into existence around captured attackers. Selena only had to move once, when a higher-level player tried to break through the field and attack the escaping civilians. She appeared in front of him, sword still sheathed, and kicked him into a pretzel-shaped slime cushion. Marcus defended the supply crates near the rear. A gang member tried to ambush him from behind a burned car. Marcus turned, axe glowing. For 1 second, old Marcus returned to his face, the one who liked hurting people because it made him feel taller. Then he looked at the crate of beginner potions. He looked at the civilians running toward us. He looked at my raised eyebrow. He hit the attacker with the flat side of his axe and knocked him into a jail bubble. Correction progress, 40%. He cursed. Stop making me improve, he snapped. I am not making you anything, I said. The zone is just aggressively disappointed. We rescued over 200 people from the mall before noon. The mall's respawn fountain was cracked and controlled by the gang. I approached it carefully. Because it was beginner content, and because the survivors had accepted my remote quest, I could interact with it. Respawn anchor corrupted by hostile control. Cleanse options unavailable. Repair options available. I repaired it. Then I changed ownership from hostile occupied to connected beginner network. The fountain flashed, the food court safe zone expanded, the item shop prices dropped, the barricades turned into proper walls. The mall's quest board, which the gang had used to force dangerous tasks on weaker players, refreshed with new beginner quests. Carry supplies. Repair barricades. Escort civilians. Slap mall slimes responsibly. I added the last one myself. The trapped survivors cried, some bowed. I hated that and immediately made the quest board display a warning. Do not bow, it makes things weird. Harper laughed so hard she had to sit down. The mall zone connected to our fortress. Network strength increased. Remote permissions improved. Hostile beginner zone cleansing unlocked. That phrase sounded dramatic, but the actual tool was simple. Wherever weak players were trapped inside beginner content, I could send them a path, reward their escape, repair their foundation, and punish aggressors if they attacked within marked tutorial areas. I did not need an army. I needed bait, timing, and portable jail stakes. For the next several days, we became a nightmare to every bully hiding in starter zones. The group had taken over an old school and forced new players to farm goblins for them. We marked the gym as a cooperative tutorial field, made all basketball hoops count as slime launchers, and tricked the gang into chasing civilians across the court. The hoops fired slimes like green cannonballs. Owen collected the attackers in portable cages. The school became a training annex with the best dodge drills in the network. A band of thieves controlled a subway shelter by camping the respawn point. I adjusted the respawn fountain to release a harmless shockwave every time a revived player was threatened. The thieves tried to camp it again and got blasted into the ceiling tiles. Selena cut the exits closed before they could run. Harper sold shock-resistant boots to the rescued players 5 minutes later. A fire mage gang occupied a parking garage and burned anyone who approached. I could not reduce their fire, so I increased slime humidity in the entire garage. Every spell they cast turned into steam. Every steam cloud triggered beginner visibility arrows, and every arrow pointed directly at them. Marcus knocked 3 into jail bubbles with a supply crate and pretended it was an accident. Our network grew. Our fortress grew with it. The SSS rank starter fortress became the heart of connected beginner zones across the city. Safe roads linked shelters, shops shared inventory, training fields copied successful drills, respawn fountains stabilized. Weak players no longer had to kneel to the first loud person with a weapon. And I remained level 1. Technically, Status window still showed no class, no level gains, and stats so low a motivated pigeon could threaten me, but the founder settings had changed what level meant. Inside connected beginner territory, my weapon scaled with every wall, every slime, every quest, every safe zone, every rescued player. I was not strong like Selena. I could not cut a building. I could not outrun lightning. But if you attacked me where the ground knew my name, the ground would answer. That truth spread as rumor. Some said the starter fortress had a hidden guardian spirit. Some said the slimes were intelligent. Some said Harper secretly controlled the economy with cursed bread. That one might have been true. Some said Selena had claimed the beginner zone as her personal training ground. She did not correct them because it made dangerous people hesitate. Nobody said level 1 Logan had an admin menu. That was how I wanted it. For one whole night, I thought the rumors would slow down the dangerous people. I was wrong. Rumors are not walls. Rumors are bait with better posture. The first ones who came after the connected zones were not high-rank heroes. They were not monsters with glowing eyes or dungeon bosses dragging chains through the streets. They were players who had learned the ugliest lesson of the apocalypse early. Frightened people will hand over anything if you scare them properly. They called themselves a rescue crew, which was funny because the only thing they rescued was loot from people too weak to stop them. They arrived at the South Road with wagons full of stolen beginner gear, captured shop tokens, and exhausted low-level players carrying their supplies. They wore matching black scarves and carried curved blades stolen from some dungeon beyond the river. None of them had names worth remembering. Leader had a purple coat, a smug smile, and the confidence of a man who had never been bounced by slimes for moral reasons. He stopped outside our first checkpoint and announced that his group wanted to join the network. That sounded noble. Then his men shoved 2 trembling players forward and told them to demonstrate how grateful they were. The trembling players bowed so hard their foreheads almost hit the road. My fingers froze over the admin menu. Harper, standing beside me on the watch balcony, whispered, "I am about to throw a biscuit hard enough to become history." Not yet. Owen was already walking down the stairs with the calm expression that meant he had chosen violence, but was waiting for paperwork from his conscience. Not real paperwork. I hated paperwork. His conscience just liked stretching before exercise. Marcus watched from the lower wall, jaw tight. Selena stood on a tower beam above the gate, one foot balanced on the edge, storm aura quiet around her shoulders. The purple-coated leader spread his arms. "We bring survivors, we bring trade, we bring strength. Open the gate and we will protect this little playground." A few new players near the road flinched. Little playground. I liked that. Not because it was insulting. Because playgrounds have rules, and bullies always forget that monkey bars are basically weapons if the ground is creative. I opened the admin menu. Beginner road permissions. Visitor convoy assessment. I could have trapped the whole group right there. I could have triggered jail bubbles under every hostile player and watched them bounce in like angry fish. But I had learned something from the red-eyed gangs, the subway campers, the parking garage mages, and Marcus before he became almost tolerable. If you punish someone too fast, the crowd sees power. If you let them reveal themselves first, the crowd sees justice. And justice with good timing hits harder than a cannon. So I opened the outer gate. Not the real gate. South Road unfolded into a fake entrance, a copy of our main path made from beginner illusion tiles, slime mirrors, and tutorial markers. It looked exactly like the way into the fortress, with lanterns, banners, flower beds, and Harper's market signs. The leader smiled like he had won. He had no idea he had stepped into the tutorial maze I had built for people who treated kindness like weakness. Welcome path established. Purpose separate rescuer from predator. Reward safe entry. Failure consequences. The captured players walked first. The moment their feet touched the road, the tiles under them glowed blue and pushed them gently toward the side gardens. Soft barriers rose between them and the gang. Healing mist drifted over their shoulders. Slimes wearing tiny nurse caps appeared from the canals. I did not remember making nurse caps. Harper saw them and whispered, "We are selling those." The purple-coated leader noticed the separation and frowned. One of his men grabbed a captured player by the collar. The road flashed yellow. Beginner protection warning. He laughed and raised his blade. The ground turned into a trampoline. He flew upward so fast his scream became a whistle. A slime cannon on the wall rotated, caught him in a green bubble, and fired him sideways into a hanging sign that read, "Please do not grab beginners." The sign awarded him 1 star for effort. The other gang members drew weapons. The leader shouted for them to rush. Perfect. I increased safe zone time by 3 minutes. Not for everyone. For every frightened player in the convoy. Their bodies shimmered with pale light. The gang's weapons bounced off them like sticks hitting rubber. A woman who had been carrying a crate stared at her glowing hands and realized nobody could hurt her for a few minutes. Her expression changed. Fear cracked. Anger came through. She threw the crate at the nearest thief. The crate hit him in the chest, opened midair, and spilled beginner shields that snapped around his arms like clams. Owen walked through the gate. Anyone who drops their weapon and steps left gets soup, he said. Anyone who keeps threatening civilians gets jail. The gang laughed. I loved when they laughed. Laughter made the fall cleaner. The purple-coated leader activated some kind of speed skill and blurred forward, aiming straight for Owen. His blade glowed with a red line meant to cut through defenses. Owen did not move. I tapped the menu. Tutorial dodge lesson, adult difficulty. A wooden training dummy rolled between them, holding a painted sign that said dodge. The leader sliced through it. Failure. Second dummy. He sliced again. Failure. Third dummy. He roared and smashed it with his shoulder. The road beneath him opened like a mouth, dropped him into a padded tunnel, and launched him across the fake entrance course, while glowing arrows shouted silent instructions at his face. Dodge left. He hit a slime wall. Dodge right. He hit another slime wall. Crouch. He refused and slammed forehead first into a foam beam. The crowd on the wall started cheering. Not because it was cruel. Because for days, those captured beginners had been told they were helpless. Now the person who had terrified them was being defeated by basic tutorial advice. That is the kind of comedy that heals people. The rest of the gang tried to retreat. I changed the fake entrance into a roundabout. Every path led back to Owen. They ran through flower beds and returned to Owen. They jumped a fence and returned to Owen. They kicked open a shop door and found Owen standing behind the counter, holding a ladle. Even he looked surprised by that one. Harper shouted from the wall, "That is my ladle." Owen stared at it, then pointed it at the gang. Jail. Bubbles popped open one after another. The purple-coated leader finally burst out of the dodge tunnel covered in foam stars, slime patches, and a hat shaped like a sad frog. His eyes were wild. His coat was ripped. His pride had been put through a washing machine full of lessons. He pointed at me on the balcony. "You are hiding behind tricks." I leaned on the railing. Yes. That made him angrier, which was convenient. He pulled a black crystal from his pocket and crushed it. The fake entrance shook. Dark pulse spread across the road, and the beginner illusion tiles flickered, some kind of stolen dungeon item. It disrupted zone effects, not completely, but enough to break a few barriers. The captured players gasped as the safe zone glow weakened. For 1 second, the leader grinned again. He thought he had found the weak point. But beginner zones are not one big spell. They are many tiny systems holding hands. I switched from road permissions to shop permissions. Emergency beginner discount. Item category, courage. Price reduction, 100%. Across the fake entrance, every rescued player received a tiny glowing token. Free beginner item available. Temporary bravery whistle. Effect calls nearest slime defender. The leader blinked. The rescued players looked at the tokens. Then one by one, they blew the whistles. The south slime moat erupted. Slimes came over the walls in waves. Blue slimes, green slimes, honey slimes, nursecap slimes, one huge slime wearing a wooden badge that said assistant manager. They did not attack with lethal force, they bounced. They bounced with purpose. They bounced with moral clarity. The gang vanished under a tidal wave of beginner creatures, making squeaky noises. The purple-coated leader tried to crawl out. Marcus jumped down from the wall and landed in front of him. For a moment, I wondered if Marcus would overdo it. He had been a bully before he became useful. He knew the shape of men like this because he had once stood too close to that mirror. The leader sneered at him, "You work for the weak now." Marcus lifted his axe. Then he lowered it and kicked the leader's sword away instead. "I work for the place that beat me until I learned math," Marcus said. I blinked. Harper whispered, "Did he just admit learning?" A historic day. Marcus grabbed the leader by the back of the coat and threw him into a jail bubble with one clean motion. The rescued beginners stared. Then they started laughing. Not nervous laughter. Relief laughter. The kind that comes out when a nightmare realizes it has accidentally joined a circus. We recovered 3 wagons of stolen supplies that day. Harper sorted everything into piles with terrifying speed. Owen processed the captured gang without giving them dramatic speeches. Selena watched the road beyond the south gate, quiet. I found her there after the sun dropped behind the broken buildings. "You think more will come," I said. She nodded. "Because we have resources." "Because you have proof," she said. I looked back at the fortress. Children were bouncing in the training yard. Former prisoners helped repair the south road. Slimes carried soup bowls with impossible balance. Marcus stood beside a group of new defenders, showing them how not to hold an axe like an idiot. Proof of what? Selena's eyes stayed on the horizon. That weak people do not have to stay weak. That should have felt inspiring. Instead, it felt dangerous. A monster can be killed, a thief can be jailed, a gate can be cleared. But an idea spreads through walls. And every cruel person in the city would hate that idea more than they hated any weapon. So I did what any responsible level 1 admin would do. I made the roads louder. Not with noise, with response. Every connected beginner road gained tiny floating lanterns that tracked fear spikes. If a player was chased, the lanterns turned into arrows. If someone was cornered, the road produced a shield bench. If someone lied about being a rescuer while dragging captives, the welcome path quietly adjusted itself into a confession maze. Harper asked whether confession mazes could be rented for personal disputes. I told her no. She asked whether they could be used for customer complaints. I told her especially no. Then the North Fountain sent a distress pulse. Not a message. A pulse. One of the connected zones had gone silent. It was the old aquarium district, a beginner zone built around a huge glass structure near the river. We had only linked it the day before. Its shop sold water-breathing snacks. Its tutorial monsters were tiny shell crabs and fish slimes. It should have been harmless, weird, and probably profitable. Now its map flickered gray. Safe zone dome unstable. Respawn fountain obstructed. Beginner shop submerged. Monster classification low rank. Quantity absurd. The menu did not actually say absurd. It showed a number so large my brain refused to respect it. Harper came because the submerged shop offended her. Owen came because obstructed respawns made his eyes colder than steel. Marcus came because he said water monsters were stupid and he wanted to prove land was better. Selena came because she had been waiting for something strong enough to make her draw her sword twice. We rode the slime rail north. That sentence should not make sense, but by then the starter fortress had stopped asking permission from logic. The slime rail was a chain of bouncing platforms floating above the road, each launched by compressed slime pads. You stepped onto one, held the rope, and prayed your stomach believed in the future. The system classified it as beginner transportation. I classified it as a lawsuit with speed. When we reached the aquarium district, the streets were flooded ankle-deep with glowing water. The safe zone dome flickered overhead like cracked glass. The aquarium building itself loomed in the center, dark blue and enormous, with fish-shaped lights blinking inside. Then the street moved. Thousands of shell crabs crawled out of the water. They were level 2. Tiny, round, ridiculous, and stacked in waves so thick they looked like living gravel. A high-rank player would have ignored one, maybe 10, maybe 100. But 10,000 level 2 monsters can still chew through doors, clog fountains, trap children on rooftops, and turn a beginner zone into a nightmare. Selena drew her blade. Lightning gathered. I grabbed her sleeve. She looked at me. Do not vaporize the seafood yet. Harper slowly turned to me. Yet. I have an idea. That sentence has become either profitable or terrifying. I opened the local menu through the weak network link. Aquarium beginner settings. Starter monster shell crab. Spawn source tide tanks. Aggression confused. Quest tag collect shells. The crabs were not evil. They were starter monsters stuck in a loop. Something had broken the tanks and the zone kept spawning them. The respawn fountain was clogged because shell crabs liked warmth. The shop was submerged because the basement had become a crab highway. If I simply reduced spawn rates, the existing crabs would remain. If Selena erased them, the zone might spawn more. So I changed the quest. Beginner quest renamed. Old quest collect 5 shells. New quest become the Shell King. Harper stared at the window. Logan. Trust me. I trust you less when you say things like Shell King. Reward temporary crab crown. Effect shell crabs follow the wearer. Then I lowered the required shells from 5 to 1. Marcus stepped on a crab by accident. It popped into sparkles and dropped a shell. The quest completed above his head. A tiny glowing crab crown appeared on him. Every shell crab in the street stopped. Slowly, thousands of tiny eyes turned toward Marcus. Marcus froze. I smiled. He looked at me like betrayal had become a person. No, he said. The crabs charged. Not to attack. To follow. Marcus ran. The army of shell crabs ran after him. I adjusted road pathing and opened a route around the aquarium. Marcus sprinted through flooded streets, yelling threats at nature, while a river of crabs chased him in perfect formation. The rescued players on rooftops watched with open mouths. Harper laughed so hard she almost fell off the slime platform. Owen, because he respected order even in madness, started directing civilians down ladders as soon as the streets cleared. Selena stood beside me and watched Marcus lead the crab parade. Your strategies are getting stranger, she said. They are working. That is the strangest part. Once Marcus had gathered most of the crabs, I redirected him toward the aquarium's central tide tank. He saw the glowing arrows and tried to ignore them. The road tilted. He slid anyway. The crab army poured after him into the building. Inside, the tide tank had cracked open, spilling magical water across 3 floors. Fish slimes floated in the air, bumping into signs. Shell crabs covered the walls. The beginner shop counter drifted sideways like a sad boat. Harper gasped, my cousin in commerce has drowned. You do not have a cousin in commerce. All shops are related. Owen pointed to the fountain chamber. The respawn fountain pulsed weakly under a mound of crabs. I needed to clear them without killing them too fast. So I added a shop item. Beginner shop temporary item, deluxe algae cracker. Price 1 shell. Effect irresistible to shell crabs. Harper's grief vanished. You made currency and demand in one button. Focus. I have never been more focused. He set the shop to auto-distribute crackers through floating snack tubes. The tubes fired green crackers across the tank room. Shell crabs chased them. Fish slimes chased the bubbles made by the crackers. Marcus chased his own dignity and failed. The fountain cleared. Owen slammed his baton into the floor and activated jail chain mode, not to imprison anyone, but to anchor the fountain grate. The water pressure dropped. Selena cut 3 cracked supports free with surgical lightning. I repaired the beginner fence setting, except the fence was a giant aquarium tank seal, and apparently the menu did not care about scale as long as the original object had been called a beginner safety barrier. The glass healed. The water stopped rising. The dome stabilized. Then the real problem woke up. At the bottom of the tide tank, under the broken coral display, a massive hermit crab lifted its shell. It was still low rank. Technically, its shell was made from an entire gift shop. Toy swords, mugs, shelves, keychains, postcards, and a spinning display rack had fused into a glittering fortress on its back. Its claws snapped, and the shockwave knocked fish slimes into the ceiling. Beginner boss identified. Souvenir crab. Harper whispered, I need its shell. The boss charged. Selena smiled, but I raised a hand. No killing the gift shop. The boss slammed into a pillar. The aquarium shook. I scanned the settings. Boss trait, hoarder. Weakness, discounts. I stared at the word. Sometimes the menu understood me too well. I linked the aquarium shop to Harper's Market Hall and activated the most dangerous power in any civilization. Clearance sale. Every price tag in the gift shop shell lit up. 90% off. The souvenir crab stopped mid-charge. Its eyes widened. Every shell crab in the room turned toward it like worshippers seeing a comet. Harper raised both hands. No one touch anything until I establish inventory order. Too late. Shell crab swarmed the boss, not to hurt it, but to peel discounted keychains, mugs, and toy swords from its shell. The boss spun in panic. Selena used lightning threads to pin its claws without cutting them. Owen anchored its legs with jail chains whenever it tried to crush someone. Marcus, still wearing the crab crown, shouted at the shell crabs to move faster. They obeyed. He hated that. Once the shell was stripped down to a harmless hollow display rack, the boss lost its defense. I changed the quest one more time. New quest, return lost souvenir. Reward, aquarium district restoration. The giant crab blinked. A tiny quest marker appeared above a broken display case. It picked up one postcard with delicate claws, placed it into the case, and dissolved into blue light. The aquarium district roared back to life. The safe zone dome became clear. The submerged shop rose from the water on floating platforms. The fountain burst upward with silver blue light. Fish slimes formed a ring and began circling the ceiling like lazy stars. Aquarium beginner zone restored. Network contribution increased. New facility unlocked, starter Tide Forge. Harper nearly levitated. The Tide Forge created water-aspected beginner gear, shields that slid through crowds, boots that ran over puddles, potions that restored stamina and made your hair float for 10 minutes. It also produced crab crackers, which became a public favorite until Marcus threatened anyone who called him Shell King. Naturally, everyone called him Shell King. The rescue made the network stronger, but it also taught me something terrifying. Beginner zones did not have to be small. They only had to be first. An aquarium could be a beginner zone, a school could be a beginner zone, a mall could be a beginner zone. If the game had marked an area for tutorials, early quests, first shops, weak monsters, or fresh respawns, my permissions could touch it. Not fully, not always, but enough. And enough was becoming a dangerous word. The next day, a group of mid-rank hunters tried to test that word. They did not attack the fortress. They were smarter than that. They attacked people outside it. A convoy carrying supplies to the west shelter disappeared near the old amusement park. The road still showed safe. The lanterns did not signal fear. The respawn fountain did not pulse. It was too clean. Clean things in the apocalypse are suspicious. I checked the map and found nothing. Then Harper brought me a broken biscuit. She placed it in my palm like evidence in a trial. One of my bravish biscuits came back unsold. I stared at it. That is bad. That is impossible. People eat these under stress, during stress, after stress, and sometimes while complaining about the name. If a convoy vanished and a biscuit came back uneaten, someone blocked appetite. I did not know how to respond to that, so I accepted her terrifying expertise. We followed the supply route on foot with Selena ahead, Owen behind, Marcus pretending not to guard me, and Harper carrying enough inventory to restart capitalism from a backpack. The old amusement park had become a half-collapsed beginner event zone. Rusted rides stood under gray skies. A carousel turned slowly with no music. Prize booths leaned sideways. The entrance sign flickered with broken light. Fun Start Park. That was its actual zone name. I hated it and respected it. The convoy wagon sat abandoned near the bumper car arena. Supplies were still loaded. No bodies, no blood, no monsters. Just silence. Then the carousel music started. Players stepped out from behind the rides, wearing masks painted like smiling animals. Their leader carried a chain whip made of ticket stubs and monster teeth. Again, no name worth keeping. He clapped slowly. The famous Starter Lord finally leaves his walls. I looked around, Starter Lord. Harper whispered, not my favorite title. Agreed. Masked leader gestured to the bumper car arena. Our convoy guards were trapped inside transparent cages floating above the cars, unconscious but alive. A trap skill suppressed their fear signals. That was why the lanterns had not reacted. The leader laughed. Your roads warn you when people are afraid, so we put them to sleep before they could be afraid. That was clever. Evil but clever. I hated waste. A good trick used for cruelty always feels like seeing a perfect cake thrown into mud. You want the fortress, Selena said. The leader shook his head. Too hard to take, we want him. Every masked player looked at me. There it was. They had finally realized the walls were thinking through one person. Not the whole truth, but close enough to become dangerous. Marcus stepped in front of me. I pushed him aside. He glared down, do not be stupid. I am going to be extremely stupid, but with structure. The masked leader flicked his chain whip. Surrender and we let your friends live. The cages above the bumper cars crackled. Owen's expression did not change, but the air around him felt heavy. Selena's hand moved to her sword. I opened the admin menu. Fun Start Park permissions. Access limited. Many settings were broken. The zone was old, half-corrupted, barely connected, but beginner event systems still existed under the rust. Ticket rewards. Prize booths. Ride safety rules. Bumper car boundaries. Mascot behavior. I almost laughed. The masked gang had chosen an amusement park because it gave them hiding places. They had not realized amusement parks are basically beginner zones with more lawsuits. I raised my hands. I surrender. Harper made a sound like a kettle dying. Selena's eyes narrowed. Marcus looked ready to throw me over the wall that was not there. The masked leader grinned, smart. I stepped forward. The moment my foot crossed the bumper car gate, the park menu brightened. Participant recognized. Beginner event available. Ride safety enabled. I selected the bumper car arena. Then I changed one rule. Old rule, cars bump each other. New rule, cars bump hostile intent. The masked leader's grin faded. Every bumper car in the arena turned on. Headlights flashed. Tiny engines growled like angry lawn mowers. The masked players looked down. Their own shadows stretched toward the cars. Then the cars launched. One hit a masked archer in the knees and carried him across the arena. Another spun under a mage and bumped every hostile thought out of his casting stance. 3 cars surrounded the chain whip leader and began nudging him in circles. He tried to jump. Ride safety harness required. A padded belt shot from the nearest car, wrapped around his waist, and snapped him into the driver's seat. The car started moving by itself. He screamed as it drifted sideways around the arena while the scoreboard rated his villain posture. 3 out of 10. Harper recovered first, that is generous. The cages holding the convoy guards remained above the arena. I switched to prize booth settings. Prize condition, rescue ticket. Ticket source, successful non-lethal bump. Each time a bumper car knocked a masked player down without serious injury, tickets burst out like confetti. The tickets flew into the prize booth. Stuffed animals came alive, climbed the booth shelves, and began tossing keys toward the cages. The leader shouted for his team to kill me. The park did not like that. Mascot behavior changed from idle to disappointed. From the shadows behind the carousel, giant plush mascots stepped out. A rabbit with one button eye. A bear holding a foam hammer. A duck with a whistle. The masked players froze. The duck blew its whistle. Every hostile player received a timeout marker. I had not known timeout markers existed. I immediately loved them. The plush bear swung its foam hammer and launched a masked swordsman into a ball pit that had not existed 5 seconds earlier. The rabbit dragged 2 archers by their collars to a bench labeled "Think About Choices." The duck marched straight toward the leader's bumper car with the authority of a tiny judge. Selena lowered her sword slowly. You planned this. I planned something like this. That is not comforting. Owen moved into the arena as soon as the first cage lowered. He caught the convoy guards one by one, checking pulses, directing them toward healing mist. Harper handed out anti-sleep snacks that tasted like mint and panic. Marcus grabbed a masked player trying to crawl away and threw him into a bumper car. The car thanked him with a horn beep. The chain whip leader finally ripped himself free by cutting the harness with a hidden blade. He lunged straight at me, ignoring the cars, mascots, and Selena. He was fast, faster than I expected. His chain whip wrapped around my ankle before I could step back. For one cold second, I remembered the truth. Outside my perfect setup, I was still level 1. My strength was still embarrassing. My bones were still ordinary. If he pulled me wrong, tricks would not make my body tougher. His eyes gleamed behind the mask. Caught you. I smiled because fear without timing is just fuel. You caught a participant. The carousel music changed. The whip counted as a ride tether. The park selected him as my safety partner. A glowing sign appeared. Buddy ride activated. The chain yanked both of us toward the carousel. He tried to release it. Too late. Painted horse lowered itself, scooped him under the stomach, and lifted him onto its back. Another horse slid beside me. Mine had sunglasses. I climbed on because dignity had clearly left the park earlier. The carousel spun. Slow at first, then faster. Leader clung to the pole, shouting threats that dissolved into wind. Every rotation, the carousel passed through a glowing tutorial ring that drained hostile intent and converted it into prize tickets. The more he hated me, the more tickets we earned. By the 30th rotation, the prize booth had unlocked premium rewards. By the 50th, Harper was screaming numbers. By the 70th, Owen had enough jail vouchers to imprison the entire gang twice. The leader's mask flew off. I still refused to remember his face. When the carousel finally stopped, he slid off the horse and flopped onto the platform like a wet towel with regrets. Owen cuffed him with a glowing jail chain. "Timeout is over," Owen said. "Jail begins." The amusement park restored itself in bursts. Lights snapped on, prize booths straightened, the carousel music became less cursed, bumper cars lined up politely. The ball pit became a healing pool, which raised several concerns I chose not to examine. Fun Start Park connected. New facility unlocked, beginner event arena. Purpose, morale, training, non-lethal hostile handling. Harper immediately leased 3 prize booths, which I told her she could not do because leasing sounded dangerously close to paperwork. She changed the word to borrowing aggressively. I allowed it because I had lost the energy to argue with commerce. The convoy guards woke up furious, embarrassed, and deeply loyal. The captured gang went to jail. The amusement park became our strangest annex yet. And the next time someone said my power only worked on beginner zones, I pointed at the restored carousel, the slime rail station, the tide forge, the school gym, the mall shops, the aquarium lights, the event arena. The fortress walls, the jail tower, and the safe roads glowing across the city. "Correct," I said, "that is the problem. Because beginner zones were everywhere people started over. And after the apocalypse, everyone was starting over every day. Our growth became ridiculous after that. The aquarium district supplied water gear, the amusement park trained reflexes and morale, the school annex taught formations, the mall district produced clothing, storage packs, and panic snacks. The subway shelter stabilized underground travel. The parking garage, once cleared, became a fire resistance course where mages learned control by trying not to steam themselves unconscious. I did not command the city. I connected the parts where hope still had a spawn point. That made certain people furious. 3 days after the amusement park rescue, a message arrived carved into a metal arrow that hit the outer gate and bounced back because the gate had developed opinions about rude mail. The arrow landed at the sender's feet outside the wall. He picked it up, confused. Then the gate politely fired it back again, this time with a small note attached. "Use mailbox." The messenger left. A second messenger used the mailbox. The message was simple. "Send Logan to the river bridge alone, or the West Shelter burns." No signature. No explanation. No attempt at being clever. Amateurs. West Shelter did not burn. I had already linked its fire alarms to slime humidity after the parking garage incident, but threats still mattered because people inside would panic. So I made a decision that caused everyone to yell at me. I went to the river bridge alone. Not actually alone. That would be stupid without structure. Selena shadowed me from the rooftops beyond visible range. Owen hid inside a supply wagon that was legally classified as roadside storage. Harper watched through shop mirrors while pretending she did not care. Marcus followed underground through a maintenance tunnel because he said if I died stupidly, he wanted to insult me immediately. But to the people waiting on the bridge, I looked alone. The river below was black, reflecting broken towers and red sunset. The bridge had once held cars. Now it held barricades, monster bones, and a dozen players wearing dark cloaks with silver hooks at their belts. The leader stood at the center with a spear made of blue crystal. He smiled when he saw me. "You rarely came. I am very impressionable. You are not as funny as the rumors say. That is because you opened with bridge kidnapping. Comedy needs trust." His smile twitched. "Good. People who rely on intimidation hate nonsense. It makes them feel the room slipping away." He pointed the spear at me. "Your fortress is built on settings, beginner zones, safe roads, shops, toys, but this bridge is neutral territory." I glanced at my menu. He was right. Mostly. The bridge itself was not a beginner zone. The road before it was, the road after it was, the riverbank under it used to be part of a fishing tutorial, but the bridge span, the exact place where he stood, was outside my strongest control. He had chosen well. Again, evil but not stupid. I respected the craft, not the person. "You want me as a hostage," I said. "I want the key to the fortress." "There is no key. There is always a key." That sounded dramatic, so I punished it mentally. He lunged. No countdown, no speech. The spear flashed and crossed the distance between us like lightning. I dropped. Not gracefully. I fell flat on my back because I had already adjusted the beginner road behind me to reduce friction by 90%. The spear passed over my face, close enough that my hair moved. I slid backward off the neutral bridge and onto beginner road territory. The leader stepped forward without thinking. One foot crossed the painted line. Beginner fishing tutorial detected. I activated it. The riverbank exploded with glowing fishing rods. Lines shot upward, hooked the silver hooks on the cloaked players' belts, and yanked. 12 kidnappers flew off the bridge and landed in the river with perfect splashes. The leader dug his spear into the asphalt and held on. Strong. Very strong. The fishing lines strained. He laughed, water spraying around him as his men flailed below. Is that all? No. I changed bait type. Old bait, worms. New bait, ego. The fishing rods glowed pink. Every line ignored the cloaks and hooked directly into hostile pride. The leader's expression changed from confident to deeply offended. A giant bobber appeared above his head. Harper's voice came through a shop mirror hanging from a nearby road sign. That is the funniest thing you have ever made. I did not make the bobber. Even better. The leader roared and released a burst of crystal energy. The fishing line snapped. He charged again, spear aimed at my chest. This time, Selena moved. A blade of stormlight cut across the bridge, forcing him to stop. She landed on a broken car, hair moving in the wind, eyes cold. You threatened a shelter, she said. He smiled again, and you came out of hiding. The bridge railings burst open. More cloaked players appeared from below, holding crystal nets. It had been a trap for Selena too. For half a second, I admired the layers. Then I ruined them. I activated roadside safety barriers on both ends of the bridge and extended them downward. Not onto the bridge. Under it. The riverbank fishing tutorial had a child safety rule: no falling into dangerous water during beginner lessons. So the safety nets appeared beneath the bridge. The cloaked players hiding there were immediately wrapped in soft blue mesh and labeled unsupervised swimmers. Owen kicked open the supply wagon door. I heard jail. Nobody said jail. I felt it. Marcus climbed out of a maintenance hatch behind the kidnappers, covered in dust and irritation. The tunnel was full of tutorial rats. Did you lose? They respected me. The spear leader realized the trap had reversed, but he was not done. He slammed the crystal spear into the bridge. Blue cracks spread through the asphalt. The entire bridge began to hum. He is overloading the structure, Selena said. If the bridge collapsed, the connected roads would be cut. The river's shelter would be isolated. People fleeing across it would die. I could not control the bridge, but I could control beginners. I opened the class Shrine Network. Temporary quest broadcast. Emergency beginner quest, hold the line. Objective, brace the river bridge supports. Reward, foundation points. 100 players across the nearby roads received the quest. Low-level builders, crafters, shield users, even kids with training hammers. They ran to both ends of the bridge, not to fight, but to touch the glowing road anchors that appeared at the edge of my territory. Their starter shields unfolded. Their repair kits sparked. Their foundation points linked. The bridge still was not mine, but both ends were. And if you cannot own the middle, make the edges so stubborn the middle has to behave. Golden lines ran from the beginner roads into the bridge supports. Selena struck the crystal cracks with precise lightning, burning out the overload. Owen jailed the netted swimmers one by one. Marcus tackled 2 cloaked players trying to reach me and threw them into the fishing tutorial pond, where a sign rated their splash safety unacceptable. The spear leader tried to retreat. I had one more setting. Beginner fishing reward. Catch quality, legendary jerk. The giant bobber above his head dipped. Every fishing rod on both riverbanks bent at once. Leader was yanked into the air, spun over the river, and dropped gently into a jail bubble shaped like a fishbowl. He pounded the inside, furious. The bubble floated to Owen. Owen looked at me, fishbowl. Theme matters. The west shelter cheered from the far road. The bridge stabilized. The fishing tutorial gained a new warning sign. Do not kidnap people here. Under it, smaller letters appeared. Especially not Logan. I did not write that. I kept it. After the bridge trap failed, the city's predators changed tactics again. They stopped trying to take the fortress. They stopped trying to take me. They started trying to break trust. Fake rescue requests appeared, false distress pulses, stolen shop tokens, rumors that safe roads charged hidden prices, rumors that the jail erased people. Rumors that my starter gear secretly weakened anyone who used it. Rumors that Harper's bread caused emotional dependence. That last one was complicated. The attacks were invisible, and invisible attacks annoy me more than bosses, because at least bosses have the decency to be large. So I built something flashy enough to punch a rumor in the mouth. The beginner festival. Not a celebration, not exactly. A public stress test. I connected the amusement park, market hall, school gym, aquarium plaza, and fortress square into one giant event route. Every player could enter. Every shelter could send teams. Every quest rewarded teamwork, rescue practice, crafting speed, defense drills, and non-lethal capture. And every single result displayed publicly. No speeches. No politics. Just visible proof. Festival began at dawn with slime fireworks that accidentally spelled almost everyone survive, which Harper said needed better branding. I changed it to survive stylishly. Teams ran through obstacle courses while slimes launched foam arrows. Crafters repaired fake barricades under time pressure. New mages learned to control fire in humidity chambers. Fighters practiced guarding civilians instead of chasing kill counts. The aquarium plaza hosted shell crab herding, which Marcus was forced to judge because the crabs still recognized royalty. He wore the crown for 10 minutes. The crowd chanted Shell King. He looked at me with dead eyes. I will remember this. You already have a statue in progress. He went very still, no. Harper whispered, yes. Owen ran the timeout arena at the amusement park. Hostile players who tried to sabotage the festival got rooted into bumper cars before they reached the crowds. One tried to poison the snack line, but beginner shop quality control detected malicious seasoning and replaced his poison with cinnamon. He sneezed so hard he confessed to 3 other crimes. Another tried to start a panic by yelling that the fortress dome was falling. I lowered a small decorative dome over him alone. It played calm music until he apologized. A group of thieves tried to steal from the Tide Forge. The forge stamped their hands with unpaid customer and turned every stolen item into wet socks. Harper bought the socks back at insulting prices and resold them as thief-proof training weights. The festival did what I wanted. People saw the systems work. They saw jail did not erase anyone. They saw safe roads protect without demanding worship. They saw starter gear grow stronger when used to defend others. They saw low-level players beat higher-level bullies when the field rewarded coordination over cruelty. Trust came back louder than the rumors. Then the last event triggered early. Beginner raid simulation. I had planned it as a fake monster wave using slime dummies, foam goblins, and illusion wolves, a training finale, big, dramatic, harmless. But someone had smuggled real monster lures into the city drains beneath the festival route. The simulation horn sounded. The drains exploded. Not with sewage, thankfully. With monsters. Low-rank rats the size of dogs, goblins carrying rusted hooks, shadow moths that ate lantern light, mud crawlers pulling themselves from street cracks. None of them were individually impressive. Together they hit the festival like a dirty wave. The crowd screamed. For one heartbeat, panic rose. The saboteurs wanted that. They wanted people to believe the network had failed at the exact moment everyone was watching. I stood on the fountain platform and opened every beginner menu connected to the route. Fine. They wanted a public test. I would give them a final exam. Simulation mode adjusted. Real hostile entities detected. Training damage converted to suppression where possible. Festival participants recognized as defense teams. I raised my starter command blade. Every booth, ride, shop, fountain, and training dummy turned toward the monsters. The foam goblins picked up real sticks. The bumper cars formed a cavalry line. Fish slimes flooded through floating tubes, carrying water shields. Shell crabs marched in rows, clicking like tiny drums. Honey slimes rolled forward, leaving sticky trails that trapped mud crawlers. The carousel horses broke free from their poles and galloped around the plaza, with children cheering from safe bubbles above. Selena cut through the largest wave with storm arcs so clean they never touched the civilians. Owen's jail chains snapped out across 3 streets, catching saboteurs hiding among the crowd whenever their hostile intent spiked. Harper flipped her market counters into barricades and fired bread rounds from 6 launchers at once. Marcus stood in the middle of the crab formation, wearing the crown again, because battle left no room for dignity. "Forward," he shouted. The crabs obeyed. He looked devastated by how effective it was. Monster wave split against our prepared routes, not because the system changed for me, not because the world decided to reward us, because I had built every silly feature with survival hidden underneath. The bumper cars rammed goblins into timeout benches. The aquarium tubes washed shadow moths into lantern cages. The school gym hoops launched slime balls at flying monsters. Market hall signs flashed discounts on courage again, and every player who grabbed a free bravery whistle summoned a slime defender. I found the saboteurs through the menu. Not by name, by pattern. They avoided monsters too perfectly. They moved away from cameras too early. They tried to damage fountains instead of flee. Their fear stayed low while everyone else spiked. I marked them with beginner quest arrows. New quest, spot the jerk. Reward, public safety. Thousands of players saw arrows appear over the saboteurs. The saboteurs froze. Then every child, crafter, fighter, mage, shopworker, and slime in the festival pointed at them. It is hard to be sneaky when an entire city receives a glowing tutorial marker calling you a jerk. Owen handled the rest. One by one, the saboteurs went into jail bubbles. The monsters lost coordination. Festival teams pushed them back into the drains, where Selena sealed the tunnels with lightning glass, and I installed beginner pest control grates. When the last mud crawler dissolved, the plaza stood silent. Then the crowd erupted so loudly, the dome shimmered. Festival raid simulation completed. Unexpected real threat neutralized. Beginner network morale greatly increased. New shared facility unlocked, Foundation Arena. The Foundation Arena appeared beneath the fortress, carved out of connected training spaces from every annex. It was not a dungeon. It was not a battlefield. It was a place where players could practice impossible scenarios safely, where weak teams could learn to survive boss pressure, where high ranks could test coordination without destroying neighborhoods. Selena looked into the entrance and smiled like someone had handed her a storm in a bottle. Harper looked into it and asked how many seats it had. Owen asked where the emergency exits were. Marcus asked whether crabs were allowed. The system answered yes. Marcus walked away. By then, even people who hated me had to admit something. The starter fortress was no longer just protected. It was teaching the city how to fight. That scared the outer guilds more than any cannon. Because a cannon can be stolen. A fortress can be surrounded. A leader can be kidnapped. But once ordinary people learn they can stand together, bullies have to work much harder. And bullies hate effort. Then the outer guilds came. Not raiders, not desperate criminals. Real high-rank players who had cleared beyond the city, gathered rare gear, and returned to recruit, trade, or dominate anything valuable. They arrived in shining vehicles pulled by tamed beasts, wearing armor made from monsters I had never seen, not stereotypical metal tanks. These people wore sleek coats, enchanted leather, dragon-scale jackets, floating charms, crystal masks, and weapons that hummed like engines. They looked at our fortress and stopped laughing. A representative, unnamed in my heart because he bored me instantly, demanded access to the class shrine, market hall, fountain, and slime training systems. Demanded. Not requested, not negotiated, demanded. He stood outside the gate with 20 high-ranked players and announced that beginner resources belonged to humanity's strongest, because the strong could use them best. I stood on the wall beside Harper. She whispered, I can raise bread prices for them by 300%. Tempting. Owen stood at the jail tower, already stretching his shoulders. Selena leaned against the gate, smiling faintly. Marcus stood beside the supply stairs with his axe on his shoulder. His correction progress had reached 70%. He was still unpleasant, but now he was unpleasant in a direction I could point at enemies. The representative raised his voice. You are a starter zone. Do not pretend to be a nation. I muttered good because I hate speeches. Then I opened the gates. The high-rank players blinked. Selena looked at me, letting them in. Only into the welcome course. The gate road shifted. Welcome course established. Purpose assess visitor manners. The representative entered with 10 players. The others stayed outside, smart enough to be cautious, not smart enough to leave. The road inside looked normal. Clean stone, lanterns, slime canals, market banners, children bouncing in the distance. The representative smirked and walked forward. Then a window appeared in front of him. Beginner etiquette quest, greet the village without threatening anyone. Reward visitor access. Failure, mild embarrassment. He stared at it. The crowd watched from balconies and walls. He dismissed the quest. Failure recorded. A tiny slime bounced from a side canal and landed on his head like a hat. The high-ranked players stiffened. The representative's eye twitched. He reached up to rip it off. Player aggression toward village creature detected. The slime blew a raspberry. The crowd lost control. He sliced at it. The slime dodged because the welcome course had beginner dodge training set to maximum annoyance. His blade hit the stone road. The road flashed yellow. Warning! He looked up at me. I waved. He raised his sword toward the wall. That was enough. The welcome course unfolded. Stone tiles became bounce pads, lanterns became spotlight beams, slime canals fired gel ropes, training dummies rolled out wearing little visitor badges. A polite sign appeared. Please try again with manners. High-rank players reacted fast. They cut ropes, dodged slimes, shattered dummies, and pushed forward. Their stats were real. Their gear was powerful. Normal beginner traps would not hold them. So I did not try to hold them. I tried to make them look stupid. High-rank pride is a weak point no status window displays. Floor launched one player gently into a floating ring that awarded him a score of 2 out of 10. Another got trapped in a slime bubble that displayed his angry face on the outside like a parade balloon. Third tried to cast lightning and accidentally powered the market hall sign, which flashed discounted socks today for no reason. Harper immediately yelled that socks were not discounted. The sign changed to "They are now." The representative finally snapped. He activated a high-rank skill, a crescent blade of silver energy aimed straight at the fountain. I had been waiting for a clear hostile strike. Beginner safe zone protection greatly increased. Hostile player suppression greatly increased. Visitor status revoked. The dome folded inward. Not as a shield. As a hand. Caught the crescent blade, bent it into a circle, shrank it, and dropped it around the representative's waist like a glowing hula hoop. Then the welcome course launched him into the air. The hula hoop spun. The slime hat cheered. He landed in front of Owen. Owen opened the jail door. "Welcome," he said. The representative tried to resist, but beginner jail had scaled to SSS territory. It did not overpower his stats. It suppressed hostile intent inside beginner law. The moment he tried to attack, his own aggression became the lock. Bubble. Cell. Silence. The high-rank players outside the gate drew weapons. Selena finally moved. She stepped through the gate and released a thread of storm aura across the road. Not an attack, a line. "Cross it with hostility," she said, "and I will let the village teach first, then I will." They looked at the representative in jail. They looked at the slime still sitting on his head inside the cell. They stepped back. That day changed our reputation forever. Before, people thought the starter fortress was strange. After, they knew it was dangerous. The strongest players could still clear deadlier dungeons. They could still fight monsters far beyond our walls, but inside beginner territory, they had to follow the same basic rule as everyone else. Do not bully the weak. It sounds simple. That is why cruel people trip over it. With the outer guilds cautious, the city around us stabilized. More beginner zones joined the network. Not all. Some were too damaged. Some were controlled by monsters too strong for us to safely reach. Some refused help because fear had twisted them inward. I did not force them. A foundation cannot be built by dragging people onto it kicking and screaming. But whenever someone sent a signal, whenever a beginner quest marker could reach them, I answered. The admin menu became less like a cheat and more like an instrument. At first I had mashed buttons and laughed when slimes bounced. Now I tuned systems. Safe zone recovery here, shop output there, spawn rates along this road, reduced aggression near shelters. Increased rewards for mixed level teams, jail duration scaling for repeat attackers, respawn protection against camping, class shrine growth for people who trained consistently rather than just farmed kills. Flashy power was fun. Clever power lasted longer. Still, I refused to become boring. When a monster swarm of giant starter bees threatened the East Annex, I changed flower planters into nectar decoys, lured the swarm into a giant glass dome, and turned the dome into a honey production facility. Harper sold beginner honey potions that made people glow faintly and sneeze sparks. When a pack of goblin drummers used sound waves to break barricades, I adjusted tutorial rhythm training and challenged them to a beat-matching course. The goblins became so obsessed with winning that they forgot to attack. Our players cleared the event by outclapping them. When a rogue mage tried to flood the slime canals with freezing magic, I raised slime bounce friction, turning the entire moat into a skating rink. His own spell slid back under his feet and launched him into the regret corridor, where illusions replayed his entrance with figure skating music. Owen called that excessive. Harper sold tickets. Selena trained harder than anyone. She never asked for special treatment. She ran beginner courses until the courses invented new ways to annoy her. Her storm blade became sharper because the dummies copied her. Her defenders became better because the dummies copied her badly enough to survive. She was still far beyond us individually, but the gap no longer felt like a cliff. It felt like a mountain with stairs. Marcus reached 100% correction after defending a rescue convoy from a monster pack, without stealing, threatening, or yelling at anyone weaker than him for almost an entire day. The zone released his punishment mark. He stared at his clean status window for a long time. Then he looked at me. Do not expect me to become nice. I would never ask for the impossible. I still do not like you. That is fine, the jail has missed you, but it is learning to move on. He snorted despite himself. That was progress, annoying progress, but progress. Then the red gate opened. It appeared at the center of the ruined financial district, just outside the outer edge of our connected beginner network. Not a normal dungeon gate, not a field boss. A towering red door made of cracked light, visible from every watchtower. The air around it pulsed with pressure. Monsters across the city went quiet. The status window identified it for everyone. Emergency raid gate. Recommended rank A and above. Failure condition, monster army release. Time until opening, 12 hours. The fortress celebration died instantly. A rank and above. That was not beginner content. My menu barely recognized it. Emergency raid gate outside beginner authority. Direct interaction unavailable. I looked at the countdown and felt the old fear return. This was the kind of threat S-ranks handled. Outer guilds would come, Selena could fight, high-ranked players could gather. But if they failed, the monster army would pour directly toward the city, and every connected beginner zone would be in its path. I could not control the gate, but I controlled the roads to it. I controlled the supply lines. I controlled the respawn anchors behind the fighters. I controlled the training foundation of thousands of players who were no longer helpless. And I controlled the most insulting weapon in the apocalypse. Preparation began immediately. No speeches, no councils, no throne room nonsense. Harper opened the market hall and converted every production line to raid supplies. Potions, bread rounds, slime grenades, repair kits, shock boots, beginner holy daggers, training shields with real reinforcement, honey sparks, anti-fear snacks. She named one item Bravish Biscuit and refused criticism. Owen organized jail-cleared fighters and former troublemakers into supply guards. He had a talent for looking at someone and making them want to behave before he lifted the baton. Selena left to contact high-ranked players nearby, not to ask permission, to tell them where the raid was and warn them not to sabotage our support zones. Marcus gathered combat players for outer road defense. He yelled, insulted, corrected stances, and somehow motivated people through sheer aggressive disappointment. He was still Marcus. But now, when a scared beginner dropped a spear, Marcus picked it up and shoved it back into their hands instead of laughing. I climbed the fountain platform and opened the network map. Every beginner zone we had connected glowed. I linked their shops to the market hall. I linked their respawn fountains to the fortress anchor. I marked every road between the fortress and the raid gate as emergency tutorial route. I set monster aggression away from civilian paths wherever beginner monsters were involved. I scheduled slime lantern convoys. I set beginner quest rewards for carrying supplies, repairing road barricades, guiding wounded players, and clearing low-level monsters from evacuation paths. Then I did the flashiest thing I could. I converted the entire Western Avenue into a moving training highway. The road lit up with arrows, bounce pads, shield walls, healing mist stations, and slime launch rails. Anyone running toward the raid gate received speed boosts if they followed the route. Anyone retreating wounded received protection bubbles. Anyone attempting to ambush, steal, or block supplies triggered instant jail stakes from the pavement. The street itself became a living support weapon. High-ranked players arrived at sunset. Some had heard of the representative in jail and kept their mouths shut. Some looked annoyed that a beginner fortress was organizing logistics better than their guilds. Some saw the potion lines, repair stations, and safe retreat markers and changed their expressions quickly. Selena returned with blood on her coat that was not hers. "They are coming," she said. "Not enough, but enough to try." Try sounds bad. It is better than surrender. The red gate opened at midnight. The first monsters were tall, thin things with blade arms and white masks. They poured out in silence, hundreds of them, fast enough to cross the plaza like spilled ink. High-ranked players charged. Skills lit the night. Firestorms, wind blades, gravity wells, spear beams, summoned beasts, and Selena's storm arcs tore into the first wave. For 10 minutes, it looked possible. Then the second wave emerged. Armored crawlers, flying eyes, towering brutes with shields made of bone, the raid line bent. My menu showed nothing on the monsters, but it showed the players falling back toward my route. I activated emergency route support. The Western Avenue roared to life. Wounded fighters hit the retreat path and slid backward on glowing rails faster than the monsters could chase. Repair stations popped open. Beginner priests and crafters stabilized them. Potions launched from dispensers into open hands. Slime shields inflated in front of charging enemies, not to stop them forever, but to steal seconds. Seconds became lives. Lives became another push. High-rank players began using the route properly. They struck, retreated, healed, repaired, returned. The raid became a heartbeat. Attack. Fall back. Recover. Attack again. The gate kept vomiting monsters. The fortress cannons fired from miles away through beginner relay towers, launching slime shells in high arcs. Most did little damage to raid monsters, but they slowed, blinded, tripped, distracted, annoyed. Annoyance was a valid battlefield role when scaled to artillery. Then a masked brute broke through the line and charged down the emergency route toward a convoy of wounded players. It was rank A. My permissions could not touch it. A group of beginner defenders froze in its path. I ran. That was stupid. I was level 1. My base agility was tragic. My lungs burned after 20 steps, but founder movement access had unlocked inside emergency routes, and every connected beginner road knew me. The pavement lit under my feet. A bounce pad launched me forward. A slime rail caught me. A wind hoops threw me higher. I flew down the avenue like a badly aimed comet, starter command blade in hand, screaming because no amount of admin power makes sudden flight dignified. The brute raised its bone shield. I could not cut it, so I did not aim for it. I pointed the blade at the road beneath it. Designate temporary tutorial hazard. The brute was not beginner content, but its foot was standing on my road. The road opened a beginner pitfall. 6 inches. Always 6 stupid inches. The brute stumbled. The convoy moved. Selena arrived like lightning and cut its mask in half. The high-rank players finished it. I crashed into a slime cushion, bounced twice, and landed upside down beside Harper, who had somehow brought a portable sales cart to an emergency raid. She looked down at me. Graceful. I meant to do that. You screamed your own name. For branding. The raid lasted until dawn. We did not close the gate by strength alone. The S-ranks and A-ranks pushed into the plaza and destroyed the core inside the doorway, but they survived long enough because our beginner network fed them supplies, retreat paths, repairs, and endless tiny annoyances against the monster army. When the core cracked, every connected fountain rang like a bell. Emergency raid cleared. Contribution calculated. High-rank combat contribution awarded. Support contribution awarded. Beginner network contribution awarded. SSS starter fortress recognized as raid support anchor. Rewards distributed. I expected the high-rank players to claim everything. Some tried. Reward chests appeared along the emergency route, inside our temporary tutorial field. A high-rank thief reached for a chest marked for wounded support players. The pavement flashed. Beginner jail. His own party watched him vanish into a bubble. Nobody else touched the wrong chest. Beautiful. The raid reward gave the fortress something new. Not a wall, not a weapon, not a shop upgrade. A horizon gate. It formed behind the fountain, a circular arch of blue light leading to connected beginner zones beyond the city. More dots appeared on the network map, stretching across the region. Some flickered weakly. Some glowed red, some were surrounded by darkness. The apocalypse was bigger than our city. So was the Foundation. Morning after the raid, high-rank players gathered at the fortress gate, not to demand, not this time. They came for supplies, repairs, training, and safe respawn links before heading back out. Selena stood among them, respected now even by people who had mocked the starter fortress days before. The representative was released from jail after Owen made him sit through the regret corridor twice. He left with a slime hat still following him at a distance. I had not programmed that. Some things evolve beautifully on their own. Marcus stood on the wall, watching high-rank players line up at Harper's Market Hall. They all thought this place was weak, he said. So did you. He grunted, you are still weak. I held up the starter command blade. the western wall opened 12 cannons behind me. Marcus looked at them. Then at me. Annoying, he corrected. I will accept that. Owen joined us, arms folded. Jail is full again. Raid thieves, I asked. Mostly. Any repeat customers? 2 asked for cells away from the slime hat. Harper shouted from below that Bravish biscuits were sold out, and anyone complaining could fight a goblin drummer for rhythm coupons. Selena climbed the wall last. She looked toward the horizon gate. You are going to expand. I looked at the blue arch and the map of distant starter zones. I thought about the first slime in the street, the 1-second spawn adjustment, the 1% discount, the broken fence, the first jail bonk, the goblin blender, the subway boss. The raiders bouncing down tutorial lane, the S-rank juggling academy, the field boss launched like a cannonball, the mall rescue, the red gate raid. Everyone had laughed at my empty class. They saw level 1 and thought it meant nothing. Maybe outside the beginner roads, they were right. But inside the foundation I built, level 1 was not weakness. Level 1 was where everything began. And I owned the beginning. I opened the admin menu. Founder settings glowed. Network expansion pulsed. Horizon Gate shimmered, showing a distant beginner village under a cracked dome, surrounded by monsters and hostile players who probably thought they were untouchable. I smiled. Not expand, I said. Starter command blade glowed in my hand. Far below, the slime moats started bouncing in rhythm. The walls unfolded new cannons. The market hall lit its furnaces. The jail tower opened fresh cells. Across the fortress, players looked up as new quest markers appeared, bright and ridiculous and impossible to ignore. New beginner quest, teach the next zone some manners. Reward Hope's loot and probably bread. Harper yelled, remove probably. I changed it. Reward Hope's loot and bread. Selena laughed, Owen sighed. Marcus pretended not to be excited. The horizon gate widened. Beyond it, the next starter zone burned under a red sky. I stepped forward, still level 1, still classless, still the most underestimated player in the apocalypse. And as the fortress roared behind me, I realized something wonderful. The game had accidentally given me the admin menu for beginner zones. But the world was full of beginners. And I was just getting started.